Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding is absent. Mr. President.
Hello, everyone. Please remain standing. I just got one line, just one. May the spirit of the holidays be with you throughout the entire new year. Thank you. You may be seated.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here today. We look forward to hearing your testimony on our many items. We're going to start first with a point of privilege for Councilmember Melton, and then we'll have a proclamation by Councilmember Johnson. Ms. Melton, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. I just wanted to say a few words in regards to the passing of Scott Lautenbaugh. He's a former state senator, former Douglas County election commissioner, and an attorney that I think a lot of people in the community know. He passed on Saturday fairly unexpectedly. I just wanted to give my condolences to his family, to his children. Scott has always been kind of known as a rebel rouser. He took on the Nebraska State Bar Association in regards to mandatory dues and won. No, lawyers typically don't take on the Bar Association, but Scott had no problem because when he saw a wrong, he wanted to make it a right. When he was down in the legislature, although he ran with as an R, right? He could debate with the rest on the floor of the legislature, and afterwards he could go out and share beer with those that he disagreed with, because he was friends with everybody and he respected people even if they had a different opinion than he did. So he did a lot for our community, and I just wanted to recognize his passing over the weekend. And I think on behalf of the council members and the people that know him, that our thoughts and prayers are with the family during this Christmas season. And we're very, very sorry for the loss of Scott Lautenbaugh. So thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Do we have any members here from the Malcolm X Center? Okay, we're going to go on without them. Whereas Kwanzaa, meaning first fruits, is an annual celebration of Black culture. In recognition of the African heritage and the descendants of the African diaspora, and whereas Kwanzaa was founded by Dr. Maluna Karenga and first celebrated in 1966 during the midst of turbulence and oppression of the Black community, to promote unity and independence amongst the Black community. And whereas the greetings during Kwanzaa was in Swahili, a Pan-African language chosen to reflect African Americans' commitment to the whole of Africa and Africa culture, and reinforce awareness and commitment to the 7 principles. Whereas Kwanzaa is a festival of culture, family, remembrance of ancestors, and rededication to the upliftment of the African diaspora, and is observed for 7 days, with each day representing unity, self-determination, collective work and responsibility, cooperative economics, purpose, creativity, and faith. And whereas leaders, members of the North Omaha community, including civil rights activists and Great Plains Black History Museum founder, Miss Bertha Calloway, ensured Kwanzaa was celebrated in Omaha for more than half a century. And now therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Omaha recognizes the lived tradition and enriching experience of Kwanzaa and official designation December 26, 2023 to January 1st, 2024 as Kwanzaa Week 2023 through 2024. In witness whereof, we have set our hands and caused the official seal of the City of Omaha to be affixed on this 19th day of December 2023. I will issue this to the Malcolm X Center later. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you. We appreciate that. Madam Clerk.
Item 6, to consider a Class C liquor license for Viva La Rock located at 12411 West Center Road, Suite 106A. A is communication in opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon.
Number 6, I'm sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, council members. David A. Houghton, 2804 South 87th Ave, Omaha, Nebraska, 68124, on behalf of Gimme 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 Productions, doing business as Viva La Rock. This is a liquor license application for their new lounge located on 12411 West Center Road in the Westwood Shopping Plaza. Viva La Rock is a new concept in lounges in Omaha that is somewhat based on its predecessor lounge, the Drastic Plastic Vinyl Lounge, if anyone was familiar with that. This will be out in Westwood Shopping Plaza and will focus on catering to older Generation X patrons and baby boomers. It'll play music at a conversational level from the 70s and 80s, and the ownership group is really excited about the concept, as is the new landlord and the neighboring businesses. I would note to the council that there was one letter of opposition. It appears to us that the opponent may misunderstand or apprehend the nature of the business. The business will only be playing music at a conversational level, so it'll be quiet. And again, it's intended to serve cocktails. It will have a small section where it sells vinyl records, but it's catering to an older crowd, and the idea is to have a conversational lounge. I'd be happy to take any questions if the council would have any.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents on number 6 today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
And it's come to my attention that we do now have representatives from the Malcolm X Foundation here in the audience. So, Ms. Johnson, would you like to present them with the proclamation you just read? Thank you.
And did you have any comments that you wanted to say?
Sure. My name is Shamari Huggins, longtime Omaha resident my whole life. Volunteer for the Malcolm X Memorial Foundation. Joanna LaFleur Jike is the executive director. Kwanzaa is something that has been celebrating this community for a long time, and it's good to continue the tradition and recognize culture and heritage and the struggle for progress for Black people, not only here in Omaha, but around the world. So thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. Madam Clerk, items 7 and 8, please.
Items 7 and 8 can be considered together for Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan located at Decatur Street on the north, 36th and 38th Streets on the east, Izzard Street on the south, and Northwest Radial Highway on the west. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. B is communications. Item 7 is an ordinance to approve an amendment to the land use element of the city's master plan. Item 8, a resolution to approve the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan.
We'll take these two items together as a public hearing, but we'll have separate votes on number 7 and number 8. It was postponed from the November 14th meeting for this purpose, so the public hearing and vote on these items are today. proponents, please, for numbers 7 and 8.
Yes, good afternoon. Eric England from the Omaha Planning Department. Obviously, we went through this in great discussion about a month ago. I'd just like to recap briefly just kind of the process and what's led us up to this point, but I'll be brief. So this dates back to about 2021 and led by InCommon along with other neighborhood partners. I won't speak to their engagement, but basically I'll fast forward to early in 2023, March of this year, for when InCommon and their partners in Spark came and met with city staff, so that included members of the Planning, Parks, and Public Works Department, as far as their proposal for this neighborhood plan. Along with those conversation items, it was discussed about, what the city can do, and that led to, interest in both sides in updating the future land use plan, which is part of the master plan, as you're aware. And so as those conversations and reviewing of the initial draft plan occurred, over the next several months, we had a lot of back and forth dialogue, a lot of interest on both sides to update that plan, as well as revisions and edits made to the neighborhood plan. That led up to being placed on the October 4th Planning Board meeting for these two items. Prior to that, in early September, the City of Omaha sent out letters to about 680 property owners within the boundary of the plan, as well as 10 neighborhood associations. So that was to lead to a public meeting that was held on September 26th. So we had a lot of good dialogue about the master plan as well as the neighborhood plan at that time. And then October 4th, both items were recommended for approval by the planning board, and then fast forward, that is where we came to in November 14th when it was laid over for further dialogue and discussion. So after the layover at City Council, there was a large neighborhood meeting that I attended. There were several different meetings. The one that I attended was on December 6th. There was about 40 individuals. I think it was a great dialogue, and really that conversation centered around the difference of zoning versus master plan amendment in the future land use plan. So we spent about an hour and a half going through those details and hearing from neighbors. Obviously there were some concerns. There was others that felt more comfortable with the information that they received. So just to reiterate, this plan does not change anybody's zoning. Okay, so everybody's zoning will remain in place. The neighborhood plan that is being recommended for approval is basically a vision of the neighborhood and led by InCommon, and I'll let them speak to that component, but the city does support that. And we felt that, when we've spent so much time in looking at this area, anytime that we have a chance to update the master plan and reflect those goals and, objectives of that neighborhood plan, we felt that was important. So we also had some individual meetings with some other property owners after that December 6th meeting. So I'm here to ask for your support in both items. I'm here for any questions.
Thank you. Other proponents to numbers 7 and 8.
Good afternoon. Christian Gray, 1134 South 30th Avenue. I'm going to try to balance the proponent and opponent combination here because there's a little bit of a conflict in both of those things being grouped, but I'll do my best. But I would like to start with the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan, speaking on behalf of InCommon Community Development and the 500 or so neighbors that we engaged throughout the process. The Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan was a 2.5-year effort led by a 15-member steering committee with representatives from all 3 focus communities, Walnut Hill, Orchard Hill, and Bemis Park, from which we all received an
Raise
endorsement.
that up just a little more.
Little
There you
more?
go. Yeah.
There it goes. Over 500 individuals were engaged through a process involved in 9 targeted strategies ranging from door-to-door surveys to public meetings to school events at Walnut Hill Elementary. It's a little bit much for this one screen, but you can zoom out on the top. Okay, perfect. The numbers on the left are the number of individuals estimated or calculated to be at each of those engagement events. This plan simply but importantly articulates a common vision for the area. It's not prescriptive. nor does it include the proposed future land use plan, other than providing it as a reference in the background section of the plan. Area residents came together to guide this planning process, garner feedback from their neighbors about ideas and dreams for their community, and developed the document that you see before you today. I, along with the hundreds of neighbors involved, thank you for your support in advance. And in conclusion, we also thank the City Planning Department for their support throughout the process. Though the neighborhood is not ready at this time, from what I understand, what I hear, to move forward with the proposed future land use map. That map and this plan have the potential to be strong, mutually reinforcing documents in the future, and we look forward to continued efforts in partnering together to develop a future land use map that meets the goals of all residents. So in summation, myself, Christian Gray, and InCommon Community Development, we are in support and proponents of the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan, which is, I think, Part B of the agenda item, but we'd like to see a little bit more work done in partnering with and getting neighbors on the same page with the future land use map before that becomes official. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Well, this is an honor for me to be in front of you fine folks. I gotta warn you, English is not my first language, so if you hear some kind of a struggle, please hold your chuckles. So my name is Bui Ray Tud. I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Spark. I'm here on behalf of Spark, obviously, a nonprofit community development
Just your address too?
my address,
Yep.
5003 California Street.
Thanks.
I don't know the procedures here, so sorry about that.
Doing fine.
All right. It's to help, or our mission is to help profoundly transform de-invested neighborhoods into prosperous and thriving communities. I would like to offer my support for the City Council's passage of the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. Our staff has worked with InCommon team who collected neighborhood feedback to inform this plan. This includes engagement from surveys, public meetings, door-to-door listenings, and other community events. The data was organized in the current plan format by steering committee, highlighting the 4 overreaching themes that were present for all the community feedback. Spark staff offered support in the development of this plan through demographic research, narrative drafting, graphic design support, as well as connections to the city planning staff to ensure the plan would be utilized to help inform future development. We feel the current plan represents the ideas, thoughts, and desires of residents of the Walnut Hill community, and thus offer our support here today. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Thanks for being here. Any other proponents?
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Ismail. I live in the Orchard Hill, 1916 North 36th Street. I'm here in support of the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. I have been with InCommon for almost 2 years right now, and before joining InCommon, I have worked with my colleague Gabe, who is not with the organization anymore. But we have been doing a lot of door-to-door surveys, listening projects, also social capital surveys, and also giving out a lot of flyers, phone calls, text messages to invite a lot of neighbors to the community so we can talk about more planning and just to meet our neighbors. We've also went to the Walnut Hill Elementary School to kind of give the vision board to the parents and also the children who were also in favor of the sports center. At Walnut Hill, we really do not have a lot of sports centers like basketball or indoor soccer, who I know a lot of kids live in that area. So they've showed their support for these sports areas and all these other neighborhood beautifications. We have a lot of artists in our neighborhood. Also, we've had a lot of people who wanted to paint some murals and stuff like that. And my job with InCommon, I'm the community engagement coordinator. My job is to get the neighbors to come to the centers, or we sit down with them face to face, make sure that we're doing all these door knocking, phone calls and text messages. And I'm here to speak about the outreach that was done from In Common. And I would like to say that we've had a lot of people that did not want to engage with us, have any communication with us, and we also had people who showed up and had conversations with us. And I'm here in support for the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, we'll move to opponents.
Hello all, I'm Carla Okrina, 1316 North 42nd Street, Omaha. And first off, I want to say thank you to all of you for being here and listening to this. And Eric England and Mariana Floral came and met with us, and I want to thank them. It was very informative. They did a wonderful job. And also Councilmember Juanita Jackson, who came on a Saturday and met with us and was just a fantastic add to us. That being said, with all the additional information that I've gathered, my feeling is that I still am in opposition to the future land use map. I totally support the community portion of this with the plan with In Common, but I am absolutely opposed to it. I mean, we've talked before when I was here that within the Walnut Hill community, we have approximately 1/3 of our dwellings that are occupied are made up of owner-occupieds. About 1/3 of them are where the tax statement is being sent to a different address, so I'm going to assume that they are landlords, and about 1/3 of them that are made up of duplexes to large apartment buildings. So we already have a large concentration of multifamily units within us. This future land use map with the provision as it's set forth looks to be putting high density and medium density as an extreme value in our neighborhood. My fear is that if we continue down that path, what we're going to see is the displacement possibly of those who have been in our neighborhood a long time, the long established owner-occupieds, the businesses, the industry, all the things that have made up the fabric of Walnut Hill for as long as I've been there, 27 years. I am totally for affordable housing, but I think we also have to look at what's going on in Walnut Hill now. And in Walnut Hill, we have homes that need some rehab that maybe are tenants. I mean, we have apartment buildings that are not in great shape. I would like to see programs come into place that could possibly help us with our existing structures before we start building on and adding more. I think we need to address the issue at hand. So I am totally for affordable housing. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be living where I am. As long as I've been there, we've had many and much rental properties within it. But I want us to look at, with this map, we're putting a high value on that high density and medium density. And I want you to think about it. What is the value we're putting on the long-term established residents that have been there, the new people who just have purchased homes, the businesses, the industry? Are we giving them the same equal value? I would hope that we are. So with that in mind, I just would like to say thank you again for listening to this. I hope that you will vote this future land use map down and that we can move forward with maybe some improvements to Walnut Hill that can be supported. And my fear is that if we vote this through, we'll possibly see the squeezing out, the displacement of those people that have been there a long time. It could happen in the future. We don't know, but it could. And I'm telling you, in my opinion, that would be a very sad day for this historic neighborhood.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I oppose this because of the reference that planning just made, that somehow this is a revamping of the master plan. When you say that you're working on the master plan, amendments to it, to me, that's not dealing with the master plan. So just in principle, I oppose amendments being referred to as looking at the master plan. I also,
Luis, just a minute, please. Sir, could I have you put your cell phone on silence, please? Or at least go out in the hallway? Thank you. Continue.
okay. I also am concerned about the type of housing that will come into the area. I think that you are yet to decide what affordable housing is. And I think that any future development in this area should reflect the need for affordable housing. Also, I do appreciate, though, that the commercial zoning is there, like expansion of the commercial zoning. That's a positive, but I think that maybe this needs to be more convincing to the community that's there. Thank you.
Thanks. Other opponents?
Murray Hayes, 4032 Izzard Street. I want to start just by noting that the three proponents that have been here, not one of them is a resident of actual Walnut Hill. They have business there, or they're a contractor, or they're an employee of In Common. Today we have Carla spoke, I'm here. We have business owners here that are located in Walnut Hill, because this is a very personal issue for us. So bear with me as I'm going to read this so I don't ramble. Yesterday, Christian Gray and I both did interviews with KETV. He stated on camera that Walnut Hill was right for redevelopment and gentrification. And I'm just going to read the definition of gentrification because I took it really personally when this term was used. Gentrification is the process whereby the character of a poor urban area is changed by wealthier people moving in, improving housing, and attracting new businesses, typically displacing current inhabitants in the process. So, excuse me, Carla kind of said the same thing. Her concern was that 20, 30, 40-year residents of this neighborhood would eventually get displaced. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples, and these are actual people and actual properties that exist in Walnut Hill that would fly in the face of gentrification. We have a house that recently sold for $475,000, another that sold for $275,000, and another that sold for $269,000. We have a family in our neighborhood that owns oil wells. We have another family with a net worth of over $2 million. We have another family who earns 6 figures and another family with attorneys in it. A lot of these families and businesses can certainly afford to live elsewhere, but they don't. Families live there. I've been there 23 years, 30 years, 40 years. There's families who brother and sister live 2 blocks apart. Brothers live 2 blocks apart. Parents and daughter live 3 blocks apart. Walnut Hill is an amazing neighborhood. Walnut Hill, we also have families that live paycheck to paycheck and are able to keep a roof over their head only with assistance. But our neighborhood is thriving, and we know that. Even though we have apartment buildings that are an issue and on the city's radar, they are being addressed. In Common has bought a lot of property in the city under the guise of offering affordable housing. Yet for Walnut Hill, and in Christian's own words, he wants to displace current residents through gentrification and redevelopment. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Hi, Greg Cresswell, 4032 Izzard. I am also a 30-year resident of Walnut Hill. I kind of want to just say that I love my neighborhood. I can live anywhere else, and I feel like this plan potentially will destroy this neighborhood, where we have multi-generations living blocks apart. As a neighborhood group, we have worked really hard to keep improving our neighborhood, and I think that what we were sold originally as this neighborhood plan was supposed to be beautification on Hamilton Street, which we would all love to see, improving the traffic on Hamilton and 40th, which we would all love to see. And somehow that's morphed into allowing one group to have the potential to come in and tear down our neighborhood and build apartments and destroying the lives of all the people that are there. So I think that's about it.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Phil McCune. I live at 13629 Seward Street. I bought the Harvey Company in 1995 and that was a famous Omaha company. He talked me into it, and I really liked it. We built some houses with Jesu Housing. We were studying the capacity would concrete work as a better house. So with city planning's help, we built 3 houses and sold them to just regular people. We didn't know we were supposed to try to keep them for anyhow. I'm almost done. I really want to thank Anita for coming to our meeting. I was very impressed. But planning has been more than excellent. But I said in writing that my zoning stays for the Harvey Company and Chiacho Roofing and all those old buildings. My buildings are all rented for 10 years. So people must like them if they've rented them for 10 years. And I may not be here 10 years from now, but my family would still probably own it. And it gets, the crunch is, if it's a density housing zoning, you can pass the zoning on. There's nothing in writing that says it can stay industrial. You have to apply. That's not the same as at all as, if it's dense residential, and I'm done. If it's dense residential, the zoning can pass to the next owner. If it's not, you have to reapply. That's a little bit of a, maybe the planning people are gone. Maybe they're in San Diego by then. Maybe, and I know I'm going to be 6 feet under, but happy holidays. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Hi, I'm Dan Lindsay, 1024 Mercer Boulevard, which is directly south across the street from the Walnut Hill Reservoir. Just to have brief comments. I want to once again commend the work of In Common and its facilitation of the steering committee. And I know that their plan is, my view of it is it's aspirational and wants the best for the neighborhood, I think. And then the amendment to the master plan kind of gives that some teeth down the road. And but my main reason here today is the inclusion of the Walnut Hill Reservoir in this amendment to the master plan. The reservoir, as you all know, is a 16-acre parcel of land with 10 acres being made available for development on land that served as a reservoir for over 140 years. As a neighborhood grew up around it, including my home directly across the street, built in 1886. I guess my thoughts have changed on this as I've sat and listened to some of my neighbors to the west. The industrial buildings along the old railroad, a question I had, would apartments be better? But it's far enough away from my home that it's not really for me to say. So I don't really I don't take a position on that at all, but I also want to acknowledge that the reservoir plays a part in the specific intersection of 40th and Hamilton, and the objective is, to make Hamilton's business corridor better. But this doesn't change the fact that the reservoir itself, it's 10 acres, 16 acres, deserves its own due process and separate vetting with a community discussion. Development of the Walnut Hill Reservoir in the heart of the neighborhood is a major issue, and I want to emphasize this. I think it's a distraction to the overall conversation of what's trying to be accomplished in this neighborhood, because it is such a 800-pound gorilla that is there's four sides to the reservoir, and it really is deserving of a separate discussion. And then finally I want to say that if you must vote on this plan today, I ask that you amend the plan to not include the 16-acre Walnut Hill Reservoir site, to give the community that had a major role in making this property desirable to have their voice heard. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Jason Woods. I live at 4130 Nicholas Street. And today I am here to oppose the item 7 of the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. Again, that's item 7, which is the ordinance to approve the amendment for the land use element. I have somewhat of the same concerns as Carla, who previously spoke, and concerning the current future land use map. Where my house sits, I sit right next to the light industrial area, and this is a purely selfish reason to begin with, is that I like the light industrial area the way it is. I like all of the jobs that are currently being created with the pallet company, with the construction companies, and I like that at 5 o'clock every day, it's quiet. And on weekends, it's even further quiet. And I really enjoy the idea that the possibility that there are individuals who work at those companies, those light industrial companies, are able to live in this neighborhood. That's very unique. And even though the future land use plan does not change zoning, current zoning, from what I have gathered, it will make it easier to change future zoning if a person buys a certain property that's being sold. And again, a very selfish reason, I don't want to see a 2 to 4 story apartment complex right next to my home. And however, item 8, the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan, that's fine. That is a vision that In Common is trying to create. And a vision is needed in a neighborhood, such as beautification, such as street maintenance. But at this time, the future land use plan, I cannot accept. And as a taxpayer who lives within this neighborhood, I hope you give that some credence, along with everyone else who speaks here today who lives in the neighborhood. And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Sean Cresswell, 4026 Lafayette. I just wanted to say that I oppose the amendment to the future land use map, and I'm in favor of the plan, the Walnut Hill plan. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents?
Hi, Mary Minturn, 3416 Hawthorne Avenue in the Bemis Park neighborhood.
I do want to thank Christian Gray, Eric England of the Planning Department, and Councilwoman Juanita Johnson to coming to meetings and discussing both of these issues with us. They were very effective in answering a lot of questions, and I'll go on to say that I agree with all opposition that has been presented so far for the reasons that were presented by them. I also do want to say that I just don't think that In Common was totally transparent when they started to have meetings with community members. We have found out recently just from some television interviews that they're also a development company. So I question whether that might be sort of a motive for presenting this neighborhood plan. I'm not against the ideas in it. Some of them are wonderful, and I've talked with MUD about possibly, if they ever move the land, is to work with, let us neighborhoods work with the city to create a community recreation area, which a lot of the facilities that we would put there are in the neighborhood plan. So I think, it'd be great if In Common would work with us to maybe make something like that happen to further their plan. I'm not real thrilled about their possible motive of development in our neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents on number 7 and 8?
Good afternoon. My name is Terry, and my full name and address are on file with the clerk. I am here as one person representing many. Many of my neighbors are not in attendance today due to PTO and child care restrictions, as was the situation with the planning board meeting. I am presenting the consensus of many voices, so this may be lengthy, but I promise it will still be streamlined compared to having a dozen individual testimonies. The documents provided to you have much greater detail, and I hope that you will take the time to review those. I will just be presenting an abridged version today. I would first like to extend our thanks to the council for the extension that you provided us last month. During this time, the neighborhoods were able to meet with the planning department, as previously mentioned, which was very informative for both the residents as well as members of the planning department. I will touch upon this more in just a moment. We also appreciate Councilmember Johnson's time with us. Thank you. The area being discussed today directly affects primarily 3 different neighborhood associations: Orchard Hill, Venus Park, and Walnut Hill. These neighborhoods are often partnered together and are very tightly knit. Bemis Park Citizen Patrol also patrols Walnut Hill. Walnut Hill and Orchard Hill partner with the City of Omaha Public Works Department every spring and fall to host a site for their spring and fall cleanups. We have a wonderful relationship with our adjacent commercial business owners. John and Mary at the 40th Street Theater have created a beautiful venue for celebrations and to bring local artists together, and they provide meeting space for the neighbors. On spring and fall cleanups, Paca organizes his staff to run trucks and trailers throughout the alleys to pick up all the debris and bulky items that have been dumped and would continue to just deteriorate and promote further dumping. Phil with Daedalus has provided a skid steer and commercial roll-off dumpsters when the neighbors had to mobilize to clean up after one of the slumlords in the neighborhood had let the exterior of the apartment complex become unsanitary and unsafe. We support our commercial and industrial partners, and we want them to thrive. We want to be very clear about that. We have had our struggles, but I am grateful to live in this area, and I am happy to say I have been in my forever home for now almost 20 years. I would first like to speak on the Walnut Hill Plan. This plan is the culmination of many hours of effort and discussion contributed by the steering committee, volunteers, residents, and in-common staff. It describes the diversity and the pride that the residents take in their local community, and I think you've heard that many times today already. The 4 key themes of the neighborhood plan are 1, enhancing green spaces and public spaces, 2, preserving neighborhood beauty and historic buildings, 3, increase connectivity and transportation, 4, to maintain and build our history and our culture. The neighbors are in agreement with these 4 themes being prioritized. As far as some of the specifics in this final plan, we were recently able to share some clarifications with the planning department. During our discussion, the planning department did indicate that they were under the false impression that In Common was representing the neighborhood associations as our elected or nominated voice. This is in addition to the following clarifications and discrepancies we also wanted to share with you. There are several listed in your copies, but I'm just going to read a few points. The steering committee spent the time providing input and formulating ways to accomplish the realization of the 4 themes, but they were never provided a draft of the actual plan that had already been discussed with the city until the community meeting that was held in September, 1 week before it went to the planning board. Input and adjustments were not an option at this point, as they were already on the agendas for both the planning board and the city council. Secondly, the 4 steering committee members have confirmed that despite asking several times during the brainstorming meetings how this plan was going to be used to move forward with no concrete answer ever being provided, it was all very theoretical, that this was just going to be done so that the city had our wishes on basically on file in case somebody wanted to come in. Very similar to the charrette that was done many years ago for potential development of the MUD reservoir. But then they were not informed that there was an actual formalized rough draft that was going to be used to initiate the conversations with the city. Progress updates from in-common meetings with the city were not shared with the neighborhood associations, the steering committee members, or the residents until just the past couple of months, as I had previously mentioned. As for the endorsements, hopefully this shows, I'm not sure. Can you see that, hopefully? Yeah. As for the endorsements, I just want to point out a couple things that might be a little bit misleading. First of all, the Walnut Hill Association never verbally or in writing gave an official endorsement, as the board members did not vote to do so. The Bemis Park president gave in common approval with the thought that the potential ARPA funds available would benefit the neighborhood. But Bemis Park Neighborhood Association's board also did not vote to endorse this plan. You will also notice that Orchard Hill Neighborhood Association is not even listed among these endorsements. In reading through the minutes of the meetings between In Common and members of the city staff, In Common was referred to as Walnut Hill. In Common was never tasked or elected to speak or represent as Walnut Hill in any capacity. And again, these meetings were not known about by residents or the elected neighborhood representatives. Full disclosure, there was a public records request provided to the neighborhood leaders. We saw that there was agenda items back from May 23rd of 23 saying from different neighborhood department or different city departments saying, go back to Walnut Hill neighborhood and ask it and get these clarifications. It didn't happen. There was a lot of engagement overall initially, and In Common deserves praise for that. They do. And it was well documented, and probably in part to gain favor for the types of discussions that we're having today. But once the plan was being proposed to the city and adjustments were being suggested by the city, the impacted neighborhoods were left in the dark. Please remember the neighborhoods were not shown the completed draft that was being proposed. It was crickets for months. The neighborhoods were very caught off guard with the neighborhood plan suddenly being intertwined with an amendment to the land use map. This all of a sudden became part of this plan. The steering committee was never shown a plan like this or even mentioned that a plan like this would be included, or a map like this would be included. In the interest, I mentioned we had full disclosure. It was very clear that In Common was working towards a development plan for their own interest from day one. That first meeting that was held in March with the city was referenced as a pre-development meeting. And the updated land use map was referenced at that point in time as well. The future land use map represents their interests and not necessarily the neighborhoods. The neighborhoods weren't aware that this map was going to be part of this. Therefore, it was disingenuous of them to say that they represent the Walnut Hill or other adjacent neighborhoods. This is a pet project for them and for their ancillary business activities. The planning department never verified with the community whether or not In Common was chosen to represent their interests. In Common has only been in the area for about 2 years and are not even currently active with the neighborhood association. It is apparent from the representation in opposition today and last month that they do not necessarily know the values of the neighborhood very well.
I'm gonna have you summarize here shortly
Yes,
too. Okay.
yes, sir. So working that, I'm going to switch to the land use map itself. This does not embody the spirit of what this plan is supposed to be. We asked for green spaces. We're getting higher density. We're told, oh, well, maybe in the mixed use areas. Well, guess what? Right in the future land use map, it says open spaces and public spaces can be paved or not paved. There's no guarantee of green. Also with a higher density, parking and safety is seriously compromised. We have line of sight obstruction on our streets where it is scary to try to turn on some streets. Our bicyclists have to hold their breath to come through. More often than not, we are head-on-head traffic with the parking on the street. We can't put more cars there. Everybody in the neighborhood has been in this situation where you turn to go up or down the street and you end up backing up through an intersection backwards because there's nowhere for you to pull off unless you're gonna have a head-on collision with that car that you couldn't see coming down the hill. We're talking safety and green space and enjoyment of our things that are not being embodied in this future land use map. And that was part of our 4 themes. I'm gonna wrap up that if we are already dealing with bad decisions as shown by the Walnut Hill School just being basically diagnosed with elevated lead theories. We, the residents now, are acting as guardians for the people who are going to be living and continuing to live in this area. So please keep that in mind, we ask you. My one last point is that the city is currently in development of its Climate Action and Resilience Plan, CARP. If the residents had been told the truth, and there is truly no urgency to push a map forward, a plan forward, then let's wait to see what this CARP plan lays out. Because my thought is that we're gonna probably be an urban heat island and things are gonna need to be adjusted anyway. So please keep that in mind as well. I thank you for your time and for listening to all of us today. And we please hope that you will take our concerns to heart.
Thank you. And thanks for your submittal too. Yes. Are there any other opponents on these items, 7 and 8? If not, public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to thank In Common for engaging with the community to create a neighborhood plan that focused on beautification in the area. Somewhere or somehow throughout this course, this journey of 2 to 3 years, the information got disjointed. I'm not sure what happened, but this is a true example of why it's so important to engage neighborhoods in every step of the plan, from the onset of a plan, even all the way throughout until we reach the point of implementation. When we do that, we encourage the neighbors to embrace what is being presented to them. We encourage the neighborhood to own what they are going to receive. After all, we are living in District 2, a marginalized community. We are receiving federal funds all the time to ensure that poverty is reduced. The only way poverty can be reduced is by us engaging the neighborhood. Our neighbors have to have voices in these communities. Otherwise, we are throwing money after something that will never, ever be repaired. Is it our goal to help those in poverty? At the same time, when I reflect on the homeless population right now, individuals that are in poverty are just one step away from being homeless. We have on our agenda today to deal with the homeless as it relates to mental situations. Where do those concerns come from? We are blessed to be able to have our full faculty, have meaningful jobs, but not everyone has that ability. We must consider those that are unfortunate. We must consider their viewpoints. We must engage them. We must reach down to them and speak to them in a language that they can understand. We cannot talk to everyone the same way we talk to everyone. It's not a one-size-fits-all model. We have to go into a room, assess the situation, and understand who our audience is. Based on who the audience is how we deliver information. And somehow, some way, we continue to miss that. We continue to go into neighborhoods that have disadvantages, and yet we think that we can talk to them as though they're making $60,000 a year job. Doesn't work like that. So the neighbors of Walnut Hill have clearly indicated that they were not aware of the additional package, which is the land use. They were not aware of that. Are we saying that someone tried to pull a wool over their eyes? No, we're not. We're just simply saying that they didn't understand. What's so hard about that? They didn't understand. And they're here today saying that they did not understand. What are we going to do as a community, as a city, to make this right, make this wrong a right? Are we going to continue to hide behind, it's not my fault? Or are we going to listen to what is being said to us today that this community did not understand? With that being said, I'm in favor of the Walnut Hill plan. I am not in favor of the land use. So item number 8, I vote to adopt. Item number 7, I vote against.
Okay, thank you. We'll need a motion on these items here in a minute. I would just say that I appreciate the neighborhood plan, and I do think there's some consensus around that today that we're hearing from in the neighborhood and from Ms. Johnson. I also support those objectives, and I think In Common has is doing good work and is trying to enhance the neighborhood in that respect with this plan. And it's not unlike a project I'm working on just to the west, just across Northwest Radial, in the North Saddle Creek Road District, Neighborhood Business District, that seeks to also increase streetscaping possibilities, affordable housing, pedestrian safety, landscaping, things of that nature we know are important to a neighborhood. But we are seeing a lot of confusion around number 7, as Ms. Johnson noted, the land use element. And I know there's a relationship between the two, and as planning stated up front, there is no zoning implication to either item. I think that can't be repeated enough today. But I agree, when there's this much consternation from a neighborhood about a land use element, that's something we need to listen to. Mr. Fanslau, I think I want to ask you one question about the reservoir. That's always been a huge point of sensitivity in this area. And as a testifier observed, that is somewhat the elephant in the room. And that is included in the land use element here. And I think that is a big part of this consternation that I'm sensing. So we talked about that property this morning a little bit. And I just wanted to, I guess, repeat our conversation for those that are here today. The question I asked you was, are we aware of anything new with that property, or what is the current status of that property, or any kind of change to its current status?
Yeah, so Dave Fanslau, City Planning. The property's owned by MUD. We know of no plans for that property. I stated in pre-council this morning that, throughout the years, handful or more years, people have asked us questions about it, but we don't have any development proposals planned, or nothing has been brought to us. I will note, since I do have the mic, and we're talking about the Walnut Hill plan, or the Walnut, the reservoir is, one person said that they supported the plan because their wishes were on file. I'll note that on page 7 in the plan, is a proposed land use map that is in the plan, not part of the master plan amendment, that mirrors what we were going to do with the land use plan as far as the master plan goes. And that includes the industrial areas being maybe future multifamily. And it also includes the commercial district of an expanded commercial district that would include the reservoir area. Again, that map in the plan mirrors what we were going to do with the future land use plan. With one exception, all the single-family residential in the area in the plan's future land use plan is shown as medium density. We were going to keep ours as low density.
Okay. And for those that don't deal with this subject matter or these terms every day, can you explain the difference between the neighborhood plan and the land use element that we're talking about here today?
Well, like I said, the map that's in the plan for what in common would like the neighborhood to be, and everybody who engaged and I suppose supports the plan, there's some proposed land use changes. But the plan's not binding where the land use plan would be, because it's part of our master plan. So there's the difference. If the plan passes, it's a plan, but it's non-binding, and maybe that's why people are comfortable with it. I'm just assuming that maybe they're comfortable with that, because I'm a little confused why a map in the plan is almost exactly what we were proposing with the future land use plan. Again, alongside and working with In Common.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that is the important distinction, and I think probably the distinction we're hearing today is that the plan is not binding, but the land use element would be binding.
That's correct.
Yeah, thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Eric, a couple questions, or maybe this for either you or Dave. On the memo that Dave, that was from Dave to the Planning Board dated September 27, 2023, it talked about the community engagement. Do you have the numbers, or Dave, do you have the numbers of people? I know it was it went past that. I think Christian had a slide. Do you have the numbers of the people that were engaged in the community on those different meetings that you had?
Eric England, Planning Department. The actual details of the entire engagement would be better answered by In Common. I could speak to, I mentioned when I testified earlier that leading up to the planning board meeting, the city of Omaha mailed a letter to 680 property owners as well as 10 neighborhood associations. But as far as the overall timeline and engagement, I would defer to In Common. We have all that hidden within hundreds of emails or databases, but I'm not.
Fair enough, that's okay. Yeah. So in the process, it was spelled out in the memo that Mr. Fanslod sent. So it talked about door to door, it says 200 neighbors, some are 21, and it goes on and on and on. So Dave, I guess I'll ask you a couple questions if I can. Is this typical, would you have done anything different in this from the planning standpoint on the outreach that was done that's indicated in that memo to the planning board?
No, I thought we did a very good job of community outreach and engaging the neighborhood. We wouldn't do anything different.
Okay, and that included people from your department attending multiple, did they, I don't know this,
Yes.
I'm asking, did they attend multiple meetings with people in the community in the neighborhood?
We attended neighborhood meetings. We entertained private meetings in our offices to answer questions for individual citizens. We sent out the notices for the planning board. We answered any email or phone call that came our way with questions about this plan.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks, Dave. Christian, can you come down if you got a second?
Name and address.
Go ahead.
Christian Gray, 1134 South 30th Avenue.
Thanks, good afternoon. Help me understand, I was a little confused, so I appreciate you being here today, and I know you and I had worked together on the Hanscom, Georgia Row on Park Avenue. You guys did fine work down there. In respect to this items, the two before us, I want to be clear what your position is on item number 7 for the land use map, and then number 8. Please, I just want to be clear because I know you and I had corresponded in some emails and talked before.
Mm-hmm.
First, give me your position on number 7.
Mm-hmm.
Are you in support of or against?
That being the future land use map?
Yes.
I know this isn't probably an option. I'm in a position of layover. So if I had to pick opposition or support, I'd be in opposition at this date.
Okay. So you're in opposition number 7,
Yes.
which is a land use. Number 8 for the neighborhood plan, what's your position on that?
In support.
So you're against number 7 and in support of number 8. Can I ask you, did that change from when we had corresponded? You invited me to a neighborhood meeting that I couldn't attend, I think it was in sometime on September. You invited me September 9th, it was for the week after. Did something change on your position from then to now? I just want to be, if you can clear that up for me.
I mean, sort of counter, I think, in all due respect to Councilwoman Johnson's perspective of not hearing from the neighbors throughout this process. That's all we've been doing. So as we've heard, consternation as it's been put towards the future land use map, we thought it would be in the best interest of the neighborhood moving forward to take a position to support the neighbors in their position of delaying that. And just also, I think this might be helpful too. Is that going to come back on? So we've really enjoyed working with the planning department. Mr. Fanslow mentioned the map in the plan. It's actually under the current conditions, the background section. So the future land use component in the plan is a reference piece, not a component for approval or to push forward with the neighborhood plan.
Okay. Can you go back to those 2 slides that you pulled up earlier and put that first one back up?
The outreach one?
Nope, the one before that. We'll get to that one.
Sure. Which one was it?
The endorsements or the acknowledgements?
Sure. Yes.
So that was in the packet of the 39 pages. I just want to make sure the one that you have there is the endorsements page. Can you go to the top? Is the top, does it say the endorsements there? Okay. I just wanted to be sure of that because it was kind of, there were people that testified against. And I'm not pointing a finger at planning at all. This is just from September 23rd to the planning board. All those endorsements that are on there, I know I spoke to the general manager of the Papineau NRD. Their management was in support of this. The Walnut Hill Neighborhood Association and others have spoken in opposition or against. So things did change from September 23rd to now. Is that fair to say?
Well, it's really important, and if we could go back in time and clean up this process, we would have completely separated the future land use map with the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. When we began the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan in the spring of 2001, the future land use map wasn't even a twinkle in our eye. So we engaged this Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan, and then the planning department approached us with an opportunity to communicate some of the goals for future land use, which we were happy to partner and to communicate to the neighborhood. But that's really where the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan took a hard right, was instead of it becoming an aspirational, non-binding document, it now had more teeth to it that the neighbors, from what we're hearing, were not ready for. So for us, speaking for In Common, these are two very separate documents. The Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan and the future land use map, we only refer to the future land use map as part of the background section, so folks have all the data and information of what's happening in the neighborhood.
Okay, and lastly, if you could go to that slide you had earlier, it showed the numbers of people that had attended meetings or that you had, okay.
Yes.
So it was a total of 500 people from the spring of 21 to, I guess, November?
Yeah, I mean, we really got to work in the neighborhood. If there were some questions today, you'll largely find them, I think, from the Bemis Park neighborhood. The only part of the plan that overlaps with the Bemis Park neighborhood is the Walnut Hill Reservoir. So I think in terms of the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Association, I'm sure there's some that would object, but by and large, Walnut Hill, Orchard Hill, door to door, several meetings, involvement in the schools, exhausted really the neighborhood outreach.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I always appreciate the work that the planning department does working with any entity or group, and I think they spell out pretty good on all the outreach, and there's a lot of people from the city planning that were involved in this, so I think they did a fine job on the city's end. I think the disconnect from what I'm hearing from people testifying today is the neighbors weren't comfortable. I don't think it was with city planning, but with In Common, maybe the communication lines weren't as clear as from what I'm hearing from people on some things that, like you said, you could go back and change. You don't have to come back
Sure.
up, but I at least that's what I'm hearing today, and I know when you did the one on Park Ave down there, I think it was communicated well to me, and I understood what was going on. I did a tour. It was ice cold that day in December of, I think, 22. But it just seems this one, and I appreciate you coming up and explaining your position, because early on I knew what it was, but then I got confused. And I'm glad you came today. You weren't at pre-council, but it helps you explaining that, at least for me here today. So
Yeah.
thanks.
May I say one last thing too in relation to that? It'll be brief. We were happy to partner with the planning department. We were under the assumption, I think that's where some of the confusion is with some of the, especially the Bemis Park neighbors, in terms of us bringing in this proposed future land use map. We weren't quarterbacking the future land use map. In Common wasn't the quarterback for the future land use map. We were partnering in some ways and co-leading some meetings, but this in no way was In Common taking on the voice of the neighborhood or the responsibility for the planning department to bring this future land use map forward. And so, yeah, we are 110% about the Walnut Hill Neighborhood Plan. That's been our goal. That's been the start of our efforts. The future land use map was a convenient addition that the planning department decided to bring along in the process. that we were happy to include in the conversations, but clearly the neighborhood doesn't seem ready for that yet.
Thanks.
Mhm.
Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Eric, do you have copies of the maps that you could put up on the screen by chance?
Yes, of the proposed and the
Yeah, both.
current land
Yeah,
use map?
Maybe if we had a copy that we could put up of the current plan and then the future, then the neighborhood plan and then your plan.
Do you want them side by side?
Well, I was
I-
trying, I think to follow up to Mr. Begley's comments, I'm trying to understand, it appears to me when I look at the maps, that the neighborhood plan map is more intense than what's being proposed by the planning department from a land use. And I'm wanting, and I'm not sure who to call up that would like to speak for the opponents. I'd probably call Phil only because I've sold thousands of wax rings that his company invented. Who would have thought that the toilet wax ring would be invented in Omaha, Nebraska? Really? Yeah. So, and I've sold thousands of them. Trust me.
I learned something new today.
There you go.
Okay, so Eric England Planning Department, I guess, Don, what I'd point out, yes, this is virtually identical to the future land use amendment that is agenda item number 7, except there are different colors, and as Director Fanslaw pointed out, the orange is referenced as medium density residential. We don't have that classification in the master plan, the map, so.
So in your plan, that's yellow still, right?
Yeah, so let me put that up here. So it shows up as yellow. That's low density residential, which supports zoning up to R5. Within, going back to the neighborhood plan, the beginning of paragraph 2 there, it says a revised future land use map below illustrates a larger geographic area that allows for R5 or medium density real estate development. So it's portrayed as medium density residential, but the master plan doesn't officially have that category. So I don't know if that answers your question.
Well, so where would the real conflict be? Is it in the high density between the two plans?
Yeah, so let me
Or
put
is
up.
it in the red?
Let me put up the existing or the current master plan map. Let me zoom in just a little. I know there's a lot going on here. There's 2 primary changes from the current master plan designation to the proposed changes. So you have here the current, the gray indicates industrial, and those properties are zoned general industrial, okay? That is an unusual land use pattern, and I know it dates back historically to the rail spur line. But if you took a larger picture at the entirety of the master plan map, that industrial does not really coincide with where we would typically see industrial. There are larger tracts of land. There's, of course, South Omaha. There's, on Industrial Road out west. There's the area near the airport, Blair High Road. So there's 4 or 5 main primary industrial areas in our city. We do have pockets like this, but long term, is that the best use of the land? And like we've said multiple times, we're not taking anybody's zoning. They can continue to operate with general industrial. There was a statement about changing zoning. No, it's not. The city council is the only authority that can change zoning for a property. There is state laws, from the state of Nebraska that indicate what a city is allowed to do as far as zoning of property. And then we also have our local ordinances and laws. And so there's not anything that anybody can change for zoning besides the city council. So I just wanted to clarify that. The second primary differing part is, of course, the MUD reservoir, which is shown in the current map as open space. Technically, it should probably be shown as civic because it's in institutional use, similar to what the Walnut Hill School is shown in blue there a little bit to the west. There have been ongoing conversations, I know for a number of years, but also for much of 2023 about the potential of redevelopment of that area. I don't want to speak for MUD, Obviously, it is under their ownership, but there's been a lot of conversations that involve them or other interested parties, and we felt that, you know, showing it as mixed use would be the most appropriate. And, you know, I guess the statement of, you know, there's this narrative that the city is choosing to do all this. We have email dating back from May 18th from Christian at In Common about these two areas, about taking it away from industrial as well as the reservoir to make it mixed use. So I think the narrative has gotten sidetracked, but I don't know if that answers your questions or if you have any follow-up, Mr. Rowe.
Well, no, I was just trying to understand where the main conflict is between what's proposed.
So in some of the conversations, in some of, you know, the conversations in the meetings that we've had with neighbors, there was twofold. There was concern about the industrial properties, you know, making sure that they maintain their industrial zoning, and I think most of those questions were answered. But then there was also concern about just allowing multifamily housing potential in the future. Now, it's not as simple as just changing the future land use map and all of a sudden you're going to have thousands of apartments that come into a site. I mean, we would, at the planning department and public works and all those departments that are involved in pre-application meetings, we would have to meet with any interested parties, which there are none. We have not met with anybody. There are no hidden projects that are waiting to come down the road because of this plan, okay? I can say that. Now, does somebody come in next week? I have no idea. But we respond to developers and their requests for projects and whether it fits with the master plan currently or moving forward in the future. So that's a whole process, though, that would have to take place, you know, through planning board and city council. And changing the master plan is just one component of that. There would be, there would likely have to be a rezoning change that goes through those public hearings and ultimately is approved by this body.
And that's the way it is today. I mean, somebody came with a project that's in that industrial park and wanted to do higher density housing, it would have to go through planning department, planning board, and city council for approval, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks. I think I just wanted to try to understand better the comparison of the maps.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
All right. Did you need to come up?
Only if you're asking to.
Yes.
Quickly, you saw the plan, you
just
saw
repeat
the
your name,
drawings.
sir?
Since 95 till now.
Could you just repeat your name and address for the record, please?
Oh, I'm sorry, Pete. Phil McKeown, Daedalus Construction, 4329 Lafayette. We think we've done pretty good. That land, that industrial land, is not like much industrial land blowing in the wind. It's well taken care of, pretty much, and it pays a lot of taxes. We talked about maybe $100,000 in taxes to $150,000 out of that area. So, and again, the issue is in 10 years' time, that's our worry, is that there's other businesses that, Boyd Jones Construction Company, people worry about you can't ever unload it. I paid $2 million in 95. If I can't keep it industrial, and like we said, and that's, I think I should just leave it at that. It's been a long afternoon. Thank you.
This question is for Eric. You mentioned that there were some communication within Common as it relates to the change in the land use. Was the neighborhood associations included in that communication that you had back and forth with In Common?
Eric England, Planning Department. So no, so the correspondence from March pretty much up until the end of August, the city of Omaha was not dealing with anybody besides In Common and Spark.
Okay.
Okay.
And so from what I heard when I was at the neighborhood meeting, this group were concerned that they were not included in those emails. There was emails going back and forth. The disconnect came because those emails were coming between InCommon and city planning, and the neighborhood associations feel as though they were not included in that back and forth discussion. And that's where the communication breakdown took place.
The city of Omaha was under the understanding that that information was being taken back to the steering committee and the community. This would be like any other project. If somebody comes to meet with us, so in this situation, it was InCommon and Spark who met with city staff in March, we would continue dialogue with those entities, just as if this was a development project. We don't proactively reach out to neighborhood associations prior to any application or anything that's being placed on the planning board. So that would be customary with how we treat correspondence.
So is it correct in saying that I understand that you don't do what you just described, but would it be also safe to say that had you included that in the steps, then there would not, the possibility of the neighborhoods being uninformed would have been eliminated, correct?
Well, I guess I would say you heard from one of the testifiers that we were encouraging that correspondence to take place. So, you know, I guess, you know, it's unfortunate that they weren't being updated, you know, but I don't see that the city planning department was the best person to fill that void there.
Oh, and I'm not saying that at all, but since when did we start sharing communication only with entities like InCommon and not include that communication with the neighborhood associations?
InCommon and Spark came to the city to begin that conversation. So, I mean, that is just, I mean, I can't even think of the amount of manpower or hours that would needed by staff that we do not have the capacity. If we were just proactively reaching out to neighborhood associations for any project that came before us, that's not realistic.
Okay, thank you. Mr. President, how do we go about separating these two items that have been put together? Because
We'll start. Yep, we'll start with a motion on number 7, and then we would proceed to a motion on number 8 after that vote.
I move that we deny this.
Number 7, correct?
Number 7, yes.
There's a motion to deny. I'll second that. Mr. Hug, your light's on?
Yep. Mr. President, I don't know procedurally how to do this, so I'm going to have to ask you to help me get some guidance on this. How would we remove the reservoir from this area?
I believe the plan would have to be changed as it's been presented to us, and also removed from the land use element.
I'm sorry?
And also removed from the land use element, which is number 7.
Okay, can that procedurally be done with a motion?
I don't believe that's something we can do today from the floor, nor is that usually advised. Also, there's a motion on the floor to deny number 7 with a second at the moment.
Well, and in my opinion, I think the reservoir should be removed. Metropolitan Utilities District is absent here today. There's nobody here from MED. I know they're not here. But it's my understanding that they don't have any immediate plans for what they're going to do with the reservoir. And, you know, my information that I have is that they hope sometime in the year, if everything works out, to have an idea what their plan will be for the reservoir. But if there's one organization that works seamlessly with the city, it's clearly Metropolitan Utilities District. I would hate to do anything from up here as a city council member to hinder
any plans they may or may not have. And we are talking about something that is fairly historically significant. The reservoir's been there for 140 years. There's a lot of history there. And what and how that looks like in 5 years or 10 years, I think needs to be looked at and addressed individually and separately from any plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Milton?
Thank you. I guess I'm kind of looking at this from above, and we had people contact city planning who wanted to come up with a neighborhood plan. Our planning department, from both sides, both proponents and opponents, all I heard was your planning department and the people, Eric and Dave, were fabulous, whether we like this or not, thought the planning department did a fabulous job. But now the people that wanted this are now saying the people that wanted the city to help them with the neighborhood plan, number 8, now don't want number 7. And the city was just doing number 7 so that the plan in number 8 could be implemented. And now so now the people that wanted it actually don't want it. Did I summarize that kind of correctly? I mean, right, after an hour and a half. So I guess my point is right now, if we can pass number 8, which is just the plan, but I guess my question, Mr. Fanslaw, is can't any neighborhood just come up with a plan? The city doesn't have to vote on it. I mean, if I wanted to just, me and my neighborhood association came up with a plan for what we wanted for our park, our neighborhood, and some mixed use that we on the outside, that would just be up to me and my neighbors to see if we could recruit people to build it or do those things. I mean, anybody can come up with a neighborhood plan. It doesn't have to be adopted by the city council. Is that correct?
I would say that is correct, yes.
Okay, so 7 is really the only thing we're voting on that would actually be implemented in our ordinances.
Correct.
Number 8 is just saying, that's great, we like the plan the neighbors worked really hard on.
Well, correct, especially since there's no implementation for city staff to enforce,
Right,
or to even consider it when something might come our way.
Okay, so we're just kind of spending a whole lot of time then talking about something. I mean, it sounds like nobody wants number 7, and planning did all this work to create number 7, but it's for those that now don't want it. I just want to say I really appreciate all the work, time, and effort that our planning department put into this. So I just really appreciate the work that planning did, but I'm not going to force something onto neighborhoods that thought they wanted it and now don't. So that would be my reason for voting no on 7 and 8. I mean, I could vote yes on 8. I guess it doesn't really matter. Everything in the plan is just on paper. There's nothing to enforce. There's nothing the council enforces. There's nothing planning board enforces. So, I guess it's just kind of a goal that the people that live there might have. So I'll support. I think I'll support Ms. Johnson's no vote on number 7, and I just don't think whether we vote yes or no on number 8 makes any difference. Thank you.
Mr. Rowe.
Vote to deny number 7 today. It seems to me that it's been miscommunication between the neighborhoods and planning. Is there a way that they can come back? I guess it's a question for Dave. Can they come back after some further negotiation with a plan that's amenable to the neighborhoods and still works for our planning department? Is that doable?
Dave Fanslaw, City Planning. I'll make my point again. There's a land use plan in the plan that is more intense than number 7, which we put forward. If you're asking me after probably 200 or 300 hours of staff time to get to this point, if I'm willing to dedicate those resources to try this again, my answer today would have to be no.
Okay. No further lights. There is a motion and a second to deny number 7. Roll call.
Hug. No. Johnson.
The motion is to deny.
Correct.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley? Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion passed 5 to 1.
I need to change my vote. I misunderstood what the action is voting on. I want to change my vote to yes.
To yes, okay. Motion passed 6 to 0.
Thank you for that clarification. I have a motion on number 8.
A motion to accept.
There's a motion to approve number 8. I'll second. No further lights. Roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
No.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley. Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion passed 5 to 1.
Thanks, everybody, for their testimony and for being here today. Council members, we'll move on to the next item here, but I would, without objection, I'd like to move item number 104 up to this point in the agenda. We have State Senators Wayne and McKinney here to speak on this item. I think many other testifiers as well. So I think it'd be wise to make sure we can accommodate their schedules. So if there's no further objection, Madam Clerk, item 104.
Item 104, an ordinance to approve the creation of an inland port authority and to establish the boundaries. A's amendment of the whole requested by the Law Department.
The public hearing on item number 104 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Terrell McKinney, Senator representing District 11. I reside at 5319 North 30th Street. I am here in support of item number 104, primarily because there's a substantial amount of resources that are being placed in our community, and I believe that we need proper coordination to ensure that these funds are used in the best way and that it actually works for the community for years to come. My hope and thing in the back of my head is always that we got all this money, and 5 to 10 years from now, can we look back and say that it was used in the right way and it actually benefited the community? And that's why I support item 104 to establish a municipal an inland port authority to make sure that we have individuals within the city and in the community that are on the same accord to ensure that these projects get off the ground in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. Senator Wayne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you all for having me. My name is Justin Wayne, 8937 North 56th Avenue Circle, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. I am supportive of action item 104, primarily the same reason Senator McKinney said. I initially passed this bill in 2017 for Western Nebraska. I came back the following year and actually brought in Omaha for this specific area. We did not initially plan to put funds there, but what we saw over the last 2 years with the amount of organizations and the money going into this area, it wasn't coordinated, and the city is looking at putting significant dollars in, that the state is putting dollars in, and you also have private companies putting dollars in, and coordinating that effort is going to be very hard if we don't figure out how to put an overall structure around it. And so I think this is the best way of putting that structure around to ensure that we have some common themes and some accountability and transparency in this process. So that's why I would ask for you to support and create the Inland Port Authority.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak? There's bodies moving around, but I don't think anybody's coming towards the podium, so we'll move to opponents.
Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Question Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, and I told Mr. Justin Wayne, if he didn't run for Congress, I'm going to oppose everything he does.
All right. Thank you. Other opponents?
Anthony Cato, 2596 Crown Point Avenue. I'm not totally opposed to the Inland Port Authority, but I'd like more clarification from the state and the city in regards to why, number one, if a board is prepared to present information to the community and most of the board members that would be placed on this board, either by the mayor or the city council, that they reside in that zone primarily, because a lot of us don't know what is totally being proposed. We're not opposed to it because of the change. And the reason why I mention that is because on May 6, 2021, a letter was sent to the board, to the mayor's office and to the past city council in regards to franchises and businesses in that empowerment zone that or import land they're trying to develop. And one of the things that is concerning to me is that there's 2 members who were on the board in 2021 on this city council never responded. And it's not, I'm not blaming them, because it would be Ms. Milton and Mr. Festerson. It was addressed to the Mayor Stothert. It states simply, I've been writing letters in regards to White Castles, Waffle House, and to the office of Mr. Gaylord. He was a franchisee owner of in the corporate community. And again, every year, a letter was sent to these organizations recruiting them to come to our community to put in these new businesses. Another letter was sent on April 6, 2023 to Ms. Ingram, who is the president of White Castles. And there's also one sent to Mr. Rogers of Waffle House at North Course, Georgia. And just recently, in September of this year, and I'm going to read this letter in part. Thank you for your April 6th letter and your September.
You got to make sure this applies to the Port Authority.
I'm getting to this because it says your interest in becoming a owner and operator in this community to betterment for jobs and improvement in this zone that we're talking about. It also says that on behalf of the Rogers family and the nation, we will honor your interest and long-term passionate for bringing these items and companies to Nebraska. And what I had sent to the board, to the city council, and to the mayor's office, again, why is it you are not recruiting businesses for that particular area of the community? Because it's blighted. As I said last week when I was here in regards to businesses in the area, and one of your board members who's not here said that you're not in the business of doing that. I also heard some testimony earlier in regards to the Walnut Hill area that people are passionate about these communities. They want jobs, they want housing, they want affordable things. But what they're not getting is a direct concept and communication from the city or from the planning division. And I think one of the things Ms. Johnson tried to discuss was, if we coordinate these efforts, make it more informative, inclusive, you will not have all these hiccups. And if you're not in the business of that, then what did we elect you for? We want your support. We want your input. We want you to help us recruit. We want you to bring things to this community because we live here. We're all in this together. But if we're not going to continue to be in this together, you're wasting our time and you're wasting your time. And I don't think the citizens want you to waste another dime of their time in this valuable community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 104? Seeing none, the public hearing is closed. Ms. Milton.
Oh, thank you. Could Senators McKinney or Senator Wayne, well, Senator Wayne, you're on the end, so I'm going to ask you to come up because it's easier for him to get down.
Justin Wayne, 8937 North 56th Avenue Circle.
First of all, I want to thank you, and I want to thank Senator McKinney for coming down to our city council meeting. It's very helpful when we can work with our state senators, and I always appreciate coming down and testifying in front of the legislature, but I really also appreciate you coming to our council meetings when we're trying to work on things and pass things that benefit the city of Omaha. So thank you for taking the time. On the Port Authority, there's other port authorities. I think there's one in Fremont. There's 2, and we're limited, right? You can only have 4 in the state. Is that correct?
So when I initially passed it, it was 5. So you have Fremont, you have Hershey, which is North Platte, has one. Bellevue has one, and I think Grand Island is starting to apply. So one of the cleanup bills that Senator McKinney will do as Urban Affairs Chair. He doesn't know this, and I'm just announcing it now. Is no, but we've talked about it. Is to increase it to maybe 7. And the thought at the time we passed a bill is we were looking at mega sites. Some might be familiar with that, large land to recruit like a Toyota or something. And so we wanted to limit it to make sure that as a state we could look across the state and make sure they're placed in the right areas. And
Okay,
so we
and-
will increase that number this year, though.
And the benefit of this, it does give us just kind of it's another tool for economic development and also for use of public funds that we may be receiving in order to do that. Then we talk about a board that's appointed. So instead of just individuals trying to do their individual thing, kind of like you stated, or Senator McKinney stated, that this is really proper coordination. This is more of a coordinated effort instead of you just contacting Waffle House on your own and trying to get them to come here. It's a more coordinated effort so that we can have more jobs, better coordination of that kind of recruitment and making sure that it works with also the surrounding area, correct?
Right. So in that particular area, it's going to be a lot of infill, which is in and of itself is difficult. You guys deal with that on a quite a bit basis. But you're also going to be adding sewers. You're going to be adding streets. You're going to be adding new buildings, parking lots with stormwater runoff. And so instead of putting that burden completely on the city, that's what this Port Authority is designed to do, is to make sure it's more collaborative.
And when we, I always look at it, when we benefit one part of our city, the entire city benefits.
Absolutely.
This benefits all the way, to the Elkhorn borders because we are one city and we got to make sure that we're improving all areas of our city. So that's how I look at this, that this isn't just benefiting a single area. And when you benefit the city and the city's doing well in all areas, it benefits the entire state of Nebraska.
Correct. And the projected numbers are around 1,600 jobs that would be moving to this area once in full development.
And that was going to be my next question. What kind of development are we looking at and the types of jobs and number of jobs?
So it'll be everything from, there's different plans. This is part of the issue. There's one plan that calls for light industry. Another plan calls for some heavy industry. They're looking at multi-purpose facilities around the city-owned Carter Lake area. You're looking at hotels up and down that area. So we have a whole bunch of different people talking, and now we want to make sure that they're all being coordinated a lot better. And instead of having that burden strictly on the planning department and the city, this could be the go-between to get that done.
No, and I think that's exactly what I kind of wanted you to explain to everyone is there could be various entities that all have different ideas of what they want to do, and they're all working in silos, and that may not benefit us. So I think if you could get all the different kind of players that want to help develop this area, having one coordinated board would be extremely helpful and also probably make the area a lot more successful.
Correct.
So thank you both for coming down. I appreciate it. I have nothing further.
Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you. Senator Wayne, thank you for bringing this to us to help us create a coordinated effort to secure funds that was designated for North Omaha to uplift the community. I just have one concern. That concern would be that this is still in my district, and I'm not really feeling like I'm having a voice in order to convey what's going on to residents in District 2 on the process. It's sort of like what we just encountered with the Walnut Hill. There's a disconnect. Again, this tool is very exciting, but I just would like to have more opportunities to be engaged and be able to have insight on what's going on specifically, because it will directly impact, at the very least, I understand that there will be a 9-member board. I think that that it would be very valuable for me to have input on what that looks like, the selection of that.
Agreed wholeheartedly. The way it's currently written in statute, the mayor would appoint, the council would approve. I know I agree with your concerns about diversity and making sure that we have a diverse board in this area. So yeah, I'll do all I can to make sure you have the same input that I have, but ultimately it'll be you all decision on who in the mayor on who goes on that board. So I'm yielding state power to the city by this board because right now DED is kind of with the state, and so the council should have a lot of input, and I do agree with your concerns, and I'll give you a call this week, and we'll keep talking.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good afternoon, Senator Wayne. Thanks for coming down today. One more for you. How much money are we talking that's going to be allocated? Is it 100 million?
We don't know yet. Because right now we would have to have a vote to reallocate where it's currently at, which is in DED. There are interest on a couple funds that we have unallocated that will be voted on next year. So I can venture anywhere from 10 million from the state to 120 million, but it really is a coordinated plan that we have to also get votes from the senator on. But there is a designated fund. There is a designated fund that is already aligned that I passed 2 years ago that has $10 million in it. So you would be eligible for that immediately.
Okay. And I appreciate the different bodies at the state legislature and the city. Is this the Municipal Inland Port Authority Act? Does this help the city a little better in a kind of a poor description, but cut the bureaucracy and help allocate those funds in a more efficient manner?
I don't know if we think it'll be more efficient. The issue that we're running into is DED is looking at the entire state, and I'm not faulting DED. We just need some more laser focused in this area. So it's not necessarily cutting the red tape. It's making it easier on the city and the county and individuals who they can talk to and how they can coordinate. I mean, we're talking at the end of this close to a $500 million build out if everything goes as planned. And that's just a big burden to put on your departments to coordinate all of that.
Okay, that's a great answer, and I appreciate, again, you and Senator McKinney coming down and all the work that you've done for the city getting to where we're at today, so thank you very much.
And just to note, there also has to be some federal coordination. There's federal grants available, but because that area also flooded in 2011 and 2017, you'll be working with the Corps of Engineers to make sure all that's going. So it really is a quasi way for us to coordinate all this effort.
Thank you. Yeah, to me, the most compelling reason to do this, I guess in January would be the vote, is the impending appropriations, or I guess the opportunities we currently have with the state, largely as a result of your efforts and Senator McKinney's efforts that have not yet been appropriated or distributed. And to me, that's concerning. So if this is a mechanism by which we can assure that happens, or assure that we can seize the opportunity before us, that's something I would support, because if for some reason that does not go the way we hope, that would be a really tragic situation and a huge missed opportunity for North and South Omaha. And in this case, North Omaha, which is where this Port Authority is focused. Having said that, have you had conversations with DED? My understanding is that should we create this, we then still have to apply to the State Department of Economic Development for them to approve this Port Authority area, which they can approve or not approve, right?
Well, the way the statute reads, if you qualify for next to an airport, next to an interstate, next to a navigable river, we meet all four criteria. I think that would be very hard to deny at that point. You would have to apply. We are having conversations with DED and the governor's office. I was with the governor's office last week. So we are going to continue to have conversations. But even if this current money does not move to the inland port, there is also right now funding that is available that once you become approved, that's currently already aligned for the inland port, you could apply for, and there's additional funds that could be transferred to. So it's not all lost either way. I think this is a good move.
But I presume the main interest, and I think this would be my main interest, is the $100 million for an airport business park and industrial property we know we need for the economic development we're discussing, right?
Yes, that is the goal, and that's why I appreciate the City Council moving quickly on this, because session starts in a couple weeks, and we want this to be the first bill that comes out to move the money and to get that passed.
Yes, and so it would take a bill to change the appropriation and to direct it to a port authority?
Correct.
Okay. Well, we would look to, I think, support that legislation too, and hope to be in conversation with you about that should this be approved next week. This might be more of a couple questions for Mr. Kuzi if you don't want to keep standing there. If you don't have to. This is a unique animal. I mean, we don't currently have an entity like this in the city. There are some cities in Nebraska that do, but I just wanted to confirm a few things with you on the record that we've talked about and that you've communicated to council members. Should this be created, it does have I believe it is a 9-member board, and appointed by the mayor and approved by the council as noted. But it does have some special authority. It can acquire and sell property. It can borrow money. It can accept grants and appropriations from state and federal government, which is for sure an interest here. It can also issue and sell revenue bonds. But just a confirmation on a few things that I think are important. It does not have the power of eminent domain. It does not have taxing authority, and it would still be open to all opens meetings laws and the Open Meetings Act, right?
Mancusi Law Department, that is correct. What you indicated that they can do, and what they can do is an accurate statement of an Inland Port Authority's abilities.
Okay. And how would you foresee it operating? Largely sort of staffed by the city or the city clerk's office, or how would the relationship continue with this new entity with city government itself?
Mancusi Law Department, I assume you're referring to like once we get approval and conform it and place members on it. I don't think there's been any conversations about how that would work in terms of how it is staffed and things of that nature. They are able to have a staff, an Inland Port Authority is able to have a staff and pay the staff, and whether that means they're city employees or not city employees, whether it's an employee of the Inland Port Authority, those conversations haven't occurred yet about that. I think the primary focus now is to kind of get the ball started, and as indicated by myself and Ms. Taylor and Senator Wayne and Senator McKinney, it's a unique situation where you have to do the ordinance first before you can apply, which seems a little chicken and the egg type situation. But I think once we have been given permission by the state to have an Inland Port Authority, then it'll be time to start having discussions about how to staff it, because I believe it's 60 days after approval is when the board has to be constituted.
And is it considered a creature of the city or a creature of the state at that point, or both?
Mancusi Law Department, I would consider it a creature of the city.
Mm-hmm. And Jacqueline, I see you're here. Is there a position from the mayor's office on this too?
Jacqueline Morrison, City of Omaha Mayor's Office. We are in support of this and are asking for your support.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I don't see any further lights. I just encourage us all to stay in contact on it. It's a hugely important issue, and I know this is a rather new mechanism we probably need to work through together, so thank you, senators, for being here and for working on this together. The public hearing's closed. I don't have any questions unless council members do.
Yeah, I'm calling.
Okay, Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
I just have some questions. I support economic development and the formation of the Inland Port Authority. Our neighborhood is closest to the airport, borders Levi Carter Park. And
sir, we do need your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Joe Higgins, 1110 East Camden Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska.
Thanks.
We support the creation of the Inland Port Authority. I have a question about inclusion for the neighborhoods and what that looks like. There is a master plan for the neighborhood that I discovered after I purchased. I believe it dates back to 2011, somebody from planning, and it talks about eliminating all the residential to the south of East Fort and making it industrial, and there's actually some plans available online. I recently discovered them this month. And I just would like inclusion in the neighborhood, and I support us developing the industrial areas, but there's many tracts of land that aren't zoned residential, and there is a historic district around the lake. There's a lot of history, and I would like to see more development at the lake. So I just want to know that we're going to go forward with some kind of inclusion I I wasn't aware of, I'm not aware of everything that goes on, unfortunately. I'm not as informed as I should be. So we just want to make note that we want to be part of the process, included in it. We're for the Port Authority. We just want to make sure that there's input, the best for the whole city.
Thank you.
Thank you. Only if caught up, Larry. I don't see any further lights.
I'll call Larry. He opened it up, so I think I'm entitled to speak.
If she wishes you to speak.
Yes,
you can.
Larry, you can go ahead. Can you keep it brief, though?
I'm sorry?
Can you keep it brief?
I'll try.
Okay.
Here again, inconsistency of the way you treat people. Whenever I stepped up to speak after you, you don't look up and you say the hearing's closed, and you say, "No, Larry,
Larry,
sit
you're
down,
speaking
Larry."
right now. If you
Out,
don't
Larry.
obey by the
Okay,
rules, you'll sit down.
there you go, interrupting.
Larry.
Now, you brought up the idea of open
She
meetings
has you at the
Act.
podium. It's her
Okay,
floor.
I'm going to keep it real short if you'll be quiet.
Okay.
You brought up the Open Meetings Act. We have two gentlemen here that might help us on this. You need to have a full discussion of that by them as to how it applies to you versus us. Because we hired you and we hired them. Open Meetings Act, maybe you can help us with that,
Thank you.
Ms. Johnson.
Thanks.
All right. Public hearing is closed. Thank you, everybody, for your testimony on this item. We appreciate it. Next item.
Item 9, a resolution to approve the revised preliminary plat for Blue Stem Prairie, Second Edition, located at 4966 Newport Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. Proponents, please.
Ed Teal with Habitat for Humanity, 1701 North 24th Street. I'm here to answer any questions that we have about Blue Stem Prairie too.
Aaron Weezy with Olson, 211 South 67th Street, Suite 200. Here to answer questions as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Motion to approve.
I'll second that. And I'll also just note that the Public Works Vacation Committee also vacated several streets in this area with no damages for this project today.
Those vacations are important to this plan. Thank you.
Yes, it's a great project. Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. I did have just one question. I know on the Blue Stem Phase 1, you guys ran into all kinds of trouble. Is Phase 2 look like it's going to be a similar challenge to develop that land, or is it more conducive to your purpose?
Well, first of all, I'm not sure what trouble you mean, but I can think of several examples. Blue Stem 2 should be different with its own challenges, but we're optimistic with the help of our excellent consultant that we'll be successful with it. The advantage of Blue Stem 2 is it wasn't developed property, and so that we won't run into some of the things we ran into at Blue Stem 1.
Okay. Well, I really appreciate what Habitat's doing for our community, and just want to thank you, and I wish you well on that project.
Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further lights. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton, stepped out. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Thanks.
Items 10 through 12 can be considered together for Deer Creek Replat 27, located at 12903 Deer Creek Drive and 13014 Scott Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 10 and 11, ordinances to rezone this property from DR District and R4 District to DR District and R4 District. Item 12, a resolution to approve the final plat.
Public hearing and vote on items 10 through 12 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Denny Whitfield, 2913 Sheridan Road, Bellevue, Nebraska. Applicant, licensed surveyor representing the Lindhorst. Should the council have any questions?
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. Items 13 through 17 can be considered together for Hanover Falls Center, located northwest of 156 and State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 13 and 14, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District and MU District. Item 15, an ordinance to approve a mixed-use district development agreement. Item 16, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 17, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 13 through 17 are today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy, E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Old Mill Road, representing the applicant. I'll make myself available for any questions that council or public may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion to approve in a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Items 18 through 23 can be considered together for Kensington Park, located northwest of 204th and Q Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Items 18 through 20, ordinances to rezone this property from AG District to DR District, R6 District, and MU District. Item 21, an ordinance to approve a mixed-use district development agreement. Item 22, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 23, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearing and vote on items 18 through 23 are today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, here to answer any questions that council or the public may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 24, an ordinance to rezone property located at 3630 Burt Street from R7 District and R3 District to R3 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 24 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, good afternoon. Jerry Johnson. I reside at 3630 Burt Street. What I'm looking to do is to combine the lots, which is now separated from in two different lots, and I wanted to combine it to one. And the primary reason is I want to build a shed, and the land that I want to build it on is on the lot that's behind me.
Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'll make a motion to support this. And Mr. Johnson, thanks for coming. You don't have to come back up, but thanks for coming down today, looking at the plans. You're building a shed on the property. So I talked to a few neighbors who speak very highly of you, and I grew up about a block from there. So thanks for keeping the neighborhood beautiful right to the north of Duchenne. So I'll make a motion to support this. Thanks, Mr. President.
There's a motion, a second to approve. Ms. Johnson, is your light on?
Second.
Okay. There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 25, an ordinance to rezone property located at 1341 at South 21st Street from GI District to R5 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 25 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, my name is Maria Mayela, and I live on 1341 South 21st Street. We're just wanting to rezone to residential because we obviously live there, and we're planning on adding buildings and like a carport and a porch that we want to fix, so that we need to rezone in order to do that.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents? Any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Motion to approve.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 26, an ordinance to rezone property located at 2054 Poppleton Street from GI District to R4 District. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 26 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, my name is Matthew Bates. I live 7210 Blondo Street. We're just trying to rezone it. Marla's Cafe, the owner died and she sold a bunch of property, and this was zoned general industrial. I'm trying to get it rezoned to residential.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Begley.
Motion to approve. Thanks, Mr. President.
Second.
Motion a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 27, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located at 13750 West Maple Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 27 is today. Proponents, please.
Mr. Chair, members of the council, Douglas Dreesen, 10836 Old Mill Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. What we're trying to do is additional development on 138th and Maple. We've got a Burger King with a large parking lot. We think we can add another building to that to improve the area with that. I'm here to answer any questions as well as representatives of the property.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 28, an ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC overlay district to incorporate into that district the property located at 6401 and 6403 North 91st Circle. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 28 is today. Proponents, please.
Douglas Dreesen, 10836 Old Mill Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is a desire to replat the property into two pieces, and as part of that, the zoning needs to be changed to contain an MCC overlay. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Motion a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion
Thank you
passed
very
6-0.
much.
Thanks.
Item 29, a resolution to approve a special use permit to allow a daycare to be located in the R435 district, located at 3020 Huntington Avenue. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 29 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Ashley Carlock. I live at 6508 North 33rd Street. I am the owner of Blessed Are They Learning Center, and I'm here in regards to the special use permit.
Okay. Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Motion a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
Council members, there's been a request to remove items 44 and 45 from the consent agenda. So first we'll start with the public hearings on agenda items numbers 30 through 40.
No public hearing.
Sorry? Oh. The public hearings on agenda items 30 through 43 and 46 were already held on December 12th. Thanks for that correction. So the items before the council right now are items 30 through 43 and 46.
Move to approve items 30 through 43 and 46.
There's a motion and a second to approve those items. There's no further lights. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 44 is an ordinance to amend Section 2-21 of the Omaha Municipal Code pertaining to the salary of city council members.
Ms. Melton, your light's on.
Yes, and I just want to clarify for the public that, Mr. President, part of your job as the elected president of the Omaha City Council is you are required to, at some point during each term, put on the consideration what the pay for the next city council after the next election will be. It's always been, I think in the past, the president has always put it on kind of the year before the election year. So to make sure that the council is voting prior to really anyone potentially announcing that they're going to be a candidate for the next term, because that puts people in kind of a problematic position. So I appreciate the fact that you are fulfilling your duties that you took on as president, and that you did suggest doing a 3% cost of living increase that is consistent with the 3.1% cost of living increase that's our current COLA. And although this doesn't start until 2027, after the public hearing, it is my opinion, I ask that this be taken off the agenda, because I'm going to vote no unless there is an amendment that we just keep that we keep our salaries the same as what they are through the year 2030 and remove the 3%. So I wanted to let you know, though, I'm not voting against it, and I don't criticize at all the fact that you put it on here because you're required to. And so that would be my opinion on agenda item number 44. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hug.
Well, none of us do this job for the money, because if we did it for the money, I don't think there's few of you that would argue they couldn't pay us enough. But I also have heard some feedback from a few of my fellow council members. They have received communication service constituents expressing concerns over how they could authorize a 3% increase. Now, I'm one for visuals, and when I hear dollar amounts, it registers more with me if I see those dollar amounts. So, just in the way of sharing public information, this is our current salary, $41,000, Omaha City Council. This is the current Douglas County Board salary. $59,816. That's about a 30% disparity. Now, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm just saying if you're criticizing the city council for raising the salary 3% in 3 years or 4 years, 4 years, whatever it is, before you criticize the city council for a 3% increase, you might want to go back and say, why didn't anybody say anything when the county board was raising their salary? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, sir. I would agree with Councilman Hug. I'm going to vote no as well. I heard from a lot of my constituents as well. And I do read some of the social media posts, and they were overwhelmingly opposed to us voting for an increase. And as Mrs. Melton said, that it's not our increase, it's the next council. If I was going to lobby for an increase, and Mr. Wayne and Mr. McKinney are not here, I think I would be lobbying for an increase for our state senators rather than working real hard to get an increase for my pay. I mean, what we pay our state senators is, in my view, ridiculous, and I'm not sure that I can do anything to affect change there, but those people work extremely hard for what they earned, and so I'll be voting no as well. I just think it's just a bad look for me right now.
Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. I got a question for Mr. Kuzy.
Matt Kuzy, Law Department.
Mr. Kuzy, if this passes today and there's 7 different members on the city council in 2027, when the first 3% would go into effect if approved today, can those 7 council members say at that time, I don't think I'm entitled to a 3% raise per the city council vote in December in 23? Can they defer that or tell the city, no, I don't want it?
I suppose in theory, they could, but the salary has been set, so that's what they're getting paid. Whoever those 7 people on the council are in 2020, the 27, I think is when it goes, the next one goes into effect. In 2027, then that is their pay. I'm not really sure we have a mechanism within the city for people to decline a raise.
I can ask that question if you want, Mr. Bagley.
Please.
Because I have done that before. A council member cannot decline a salary specified by a city ordinance that has been adopted by a previous council. But a council member can voluntarily return that raise to the city, and I did that several years myself.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Mr. President. I know Councilmember Melton, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did a request for Chief of Staff that showed the comparable cities to Omaha on what the city council's salary set at. If you would, is that correct?
I did.
Okay.
You know, when this came up, I was curious. I mean, what do other council members in other cities do? So, as part of the time that I spent working in the evenings, which I know we all do often, I just went ahead and went on a little research study because I just thought it was good information. I got a little kickback thinking that because I actually took the time to research it, that somehow I was supportive of and I was proposing this. I just think whenever you're voting, whenever the public is involved, information is always good to have. And so I thought the information I looked up for myself, I thought I would share with everyone else.
I didn't mean to flush you out to
No,
ask that,
that's
so I
okay.
appreciate your answer. And Councilmember Melton, what she's referring to was a comparable of other cities. I don't know how many was it, 40 maybe. And Omaha City Council salaries are about 25% below that. Is that right? Is that what it
Yeah,
said?
it was about
Okay.
26%. And because Mr. Dowding helped me with he actually calculated the cost of living in all of those cities, obviously, because that would differ a little bit. Obviously, if the cost of living is much higher, if you're looking at another city, then you got to factor that in. So he factored that in. And it was 26% below.
Okay, thanks again for your research, because that was helpful to me to see the overall comparables for what the city council in Omaha makes compared to Milwaukee or Minneapolis or other cities. We all might not be here in 4 years if this passes today and goes into effect. I'm comfortable supporting it for the fact that you got to have, Council Member Rowe mentioned our 2 esteemed state senators that were here. I think their salary is about $11,000. And that, to me, the state senators are vastly underpaid for the work they do that impacts this body and others in the state. I am comfortable supporting this 3%. I think it's a fair amount for those 4 years. Again, we might all be gone by that time, but I think for council members, as was mentioned, the time that is put in, and we don't complain about it, we sign up for it, that's what we do, that's our passion. I think the 3% raises for those years is a fair, even though it's still gonna be way below, as Councilmember Hugg showed, what the county board, I think back in 2016, they raised their salary 34% over a couple years. I think it's gone up 55% since about 2016. This is still way below the county board, and I think this just gives a little bit of an increase for the future council that's gonna be below other councils and below the county board. So I think it's a fair amount that I'll be supporting. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion?
Excuse me? Before you close it?
Nope, there was no public hearing.
The agenda, it opens it up.
Motion to approve and a second. No further lights, roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
That's why you should-
Melton.
No.
You should all
Rowe.
be recalled.
Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 4-2. Item 45, an ordinance to amend Section 2-71 of the Omaha Municipal Code pertaining to the salary of the mayor.
Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. And although I heard from constituents about council members, You know, surprisingly, I heard from a vast majority of people that they actually support the raise for the mayor because we are at one of the bottom. We pay our mayor less than the majority of the cities, and it's not just that 26%. We're significantly lower. And this is going to be, we are not voting for a raise for Gene Stothert. I make that clear. We're not voting for a raise for Gene Stothert. We're voting for a raise for whoever wins the next mayoral election. So at this point, as far as I know, I haven't heard anyone announce that they're running for mayor. And so we do not know who's even running for that position. I do think Omaha should be paying their mayor, their CEO of our city. In fact, I think the mayor might be one of the lowest paid people that when she sits around with all her cabinet members and has the meetings, she's paid a lot less than most of the cabinet members. And you know what? Our cabinet members deserve everything they get. They work very hard. But I think that also is, again, a fact. I like to share the facts. Mayor Stothert was able, which is different, was able to reduce her salary by 10% when she was elected in 2013. I actually don't think that the next mayor who's elected in 2025 should be beholden to that voluntary reduction that Mayor Stothert, who had all of the best intentions in doing so, actually affected the pay of the mayor moving forward. By just having a 3% cost of living raise, we just start to tick that difference up. So we're not raising the mayor's salary to match that of the average mayor of the top 50 cities. We're actually just allowing there to be a cost of living increase, different than council members. In fact, I believe all the council members that are sitting here, including Mr. Harding, we all have other jobs, so we do work 2 jobs, and we do work quite a bit. When you become mayor, that is your only job. That is your sole job. You're not working a second job. So that's why my vote on number 45 is going to be a yes, so that at least the 3% per year will at least keep us from getting even more behind the average salary of other mayors in the top 50 cities across the state, across the nation.
Thank you. No, we did not, Larry. This is not a public hearing. There are no further lights. There are no further lights. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Recall all 7.
I agree that with Councilmember Melton on the 3% for the mayor's item number 45 here. And I wasn't familiar with when the mayor deferred that 10% a number of years ago, but I think the 3% for 27 through 30 for the mayor, for the same reason I mentioned for the council, you don't want to get that salary so far behind that a council in the future is going to have to address that and play catch up. So I think it's a fair percent across the board for those 4 years for whoever the future mayor is in that seat at that time, he or her. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's no further lights. Is there a motion?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 47 through 79 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. Items 47 through 79.
Good afternoon. Anna Bespoyasny with the Planning Department. I'm here for any questions with regards to item number 58 and 59.
Thank you. Any other testifiers on these items?
Hello, Alicia Christensen, representing Together, 812 South 24th Street. I'm just here to answer if there's any questions on agenda item number 64 and to just express Together's thanks and appreciation for the city's partnership in tackling our shared goal of addressing homelessness in Omaha. Thank you.
Thank you.
Justin Tyree, 4173 Cass Street, representing Omaha 100 for item number 62. Just here to answer any questions the council might have. Thank you.
Rex Youngkin here, representing Stevens Center at 2723 Q Street. Just here to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Linda Toomey, representing Sienna Francis House, 1401 North 18th Street, regarding item 61. I'm here, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you.
Aban Law, 2610 Franklin Street, representing New Life Family Alliance. I'm here to answer question on item number 63.
Thank you.
Luis Jimenez, 2709 Dewey Avenue. I would like to oppose item 61, resolution that the agreement as recommended by the mayor between the city of Omaha and Sienna Francis House in the amount of $155,517.78 for the purpose of providing shelter to homeless persons at its emergency shelter facilities for approximately 3,000 homeless persons over the course of the 1 year period. So this is 1 year contract. My reason for opposing this is that my friend Ford has been complaining about their operations, and I have to agree with him that they don't do a good job getting placement in the community for the homeless patrons. The organization receives funding from the feds, and it's receiving from the city. So they need to be audited, make sure that they're not getting money for people who aren't even there. Ford believes that they're getting federal money for persons that haven't been there for years, but they're getting stipends for them. The organization is getting stipends for them, and they haven't been there for years. And also, the organization needs to improve their operations by hiring qualified personnel. Ford says that all of them but one are former convicts, and he suspects that all of them haven't been rehabilitated. They just treat it as a job, and they are still have tendencies that got him into their problems. And that's the gist of his complaints.
Okay.
So just audit them as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other testifiers on these items? Seeing none, Mr. Begley, you're recognized. Public hearing is closed, and Mr. Begley is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I won't go through all these items, but I think it is important to really look at, and I'm glad to support the recommendations in the mayor on several of these, and all of them, frankly. Sienna Francis House, New Life Alliance, money, $25,000 for individuals from Omaha's refugee population. Another one is Omaha and Together, $66,102.67, recommended by the mayor, for the purpose of providing rapid rehousing for homeless individuals and families over a course of a year. There's several, I can go through all of them that are on here. Heartland Family Services, same thing. The Stevens Center for $43,000, recommended by the mayor, provide shelter to 850 homeless persons and many families as an emergency shelter. Think about the things we're going through in a society, and these are, I wish we didn't have to have these anymore. Maybe next year this problem gets solved, but this is the city's contribution, and again, I'm glad to support the mayor on these. And hopefully one day we don't have to do these things where people are homeless, they need rapid rehousing. It's a crisis in this country, and we do all we can as a city, and I'm supporting these because of the groups I trust that are doing this. It's a commitment by them, and it's a commitment from the city to support them, so I'm glad to do that today. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Yeah, I will note that all these items are previously budgeted and have been approved. And we do thank the community partners that are here with us today for all the work they do and for their partnership with the city for addressing these issues. Is there a motion?
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug, stepped out. Johnson? Melton?
Yes.
Rowe? Bagley? Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. Item 80, an ordinance to amend Chapter 40, Article 5, Divisions 2 and 3 of the Omaha Municipal Code by amending code provisions pertaining to the issuance of certificates for hoisting and portable engineers. A's amendment of the whole requested by the Human Resources Department.
The vote on number 80 is today. I'll recognize to council members there is an amendment of the whole. No further lights. Is there a motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Johnson? Melton?
Yes.
Rowe? Bagley? Mr. President?
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0. Item 81, an ordinance levying a special tax assessment for condemned buildings or structures, group number 2023-01. A's amendment of the whole requested by the Planning Department.
The vote on number 81 is today. Also an amendment of the whole.
Move to approve the amendment of the whole.
It's a motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 82, an ordinance to amend ordinance number 43220 for lease revenue bonds for the streetcar to amend Article 2 authorizations and approvals.
The vote on number 82 is today. No further lights. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
Ms. Johnson, are you wishing to speak to this item?
Yeah, I do
Oh,
want to
sorry.
speak to this item.
Sorry.
I understand what the motion is, or what this is to approve. However, when the streetcar passed and we decided as a city to go ahead and approve the streetcar, I was the only member that rejected the idea of the streetcar. And the reason for that is because I believe, as well as my community believes, that public transportation is lacking in North Omaha, matter of fact, East Omaha. I asked this body to give me a date and time as to when they felt that they would be able to satisfy that request to address those needs of reliable transportation. I came about with empty hands. So any streetcar items going forward, I will be denying those. So this motion I will deny.
Thank you. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 83, an ordinance authorizing and approving the establishment of a master lease purchase agreement for a streetcar. A's communication in opposition.
The vote on number 83 is today. No further lights. Is there a motion? There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Items 84 and 85 can be considered together regarding the Spencer Homes East demolition. Item 84, a resolution to approve the payment agreement for demolition services for the Omaha Housing Authority in the amount of $305,000. Item 85, a resolution to approve the contract with Cox Contracting Company.
The public hearing and vote on items 84 and 85 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Kelly Johnston Dorsey with the Omaha Planning Department. To offer a little bit of background on both items 84 and 85, we originally had budgeted $995,000 for the demolition of the MLK Center, Spencer West, and Spencer East. When we got our bids back, it was far over budget. We were only able at that time, with the budget we had, to move forward with the demolition of Spencer West. Once we received that information, Omaha Housing Authority immediately started applying for grants to raise funds for the demolition of Spencer East. After that was unsuccessful, we reallocated funds within our Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant budget to allocate some funds for the demolition of Spencer East. Once we had amended that budget, we put the project out for bid. worked on a payment agreement, which is item 84 with the Omaha Housing Authority. And as soon as this is approved and we received signed contracts back from the mayor's office, we're ready to issue notice to proceed as soon as we receive those signed contracts back. I will also note that the city and Omaha Housing Authority are two separate entities, and the city of Omaha, we're only able to respond to code violations if we receive complaints, and we don't have any open complaints on this property. We haven't received one in several months. So those are the complaints that officially the city of Omaha code inspectors have receiving, and we don't have any of those at this point. So I'll turn it over now. I'll be available to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon. Please forgive the mask. I'm fighting through a cold. Joni Poor, Omaha Housing Authority, 1823 Harney Street. We are absolutely here in support of approval of this contract. We definitely want to move ahead with the demolition of Spencer East. As Kelly indicated, it was always a part of the plan to fully demolish all of the Spencer housing homes, as well as the former MLK office building. And when we received the bids back, excuse me, we received the bids back from the contractors, when it came time to actually complete this work, those bids were significantly higher. This, if you recall, if you think back about 18 months ago, that was definitely really during peak inflation time as well. So we saw significant inflationary price increases. And then there's also lead and asbestos abatement that's needed to take place in these buildings, and that increased the cost as well. We are also frustrated at the condition of the property. When we became aware of the dumping that has been taking place, I immediately followed up with the individuals that were responsible for going down to that property and making sure regularly, on a daily, if not, more often if we receive more complaints, basis, to make sure that that property is taken care of, and that wasn't happening. That person no longer works for our organization. It's important that we take care of the property and that we have responsibility in place to do so, that there's accountability on our organization, and to make sure that the dumping is not taking place. The property has been cleaned up. There were manhole covers that were missing. It really didn't make a lot of sense to try to replace manhole covers that will be stolen again and used for scrap like the current ones were. We were able to locate heavy-duty plastic manhole covers, which arrived today. We were able to expedite shipping, and so those were arrived today and installed today. So we're working to address those issues as well. If there's any additional questions, I'm happy to answer those. I will mention, too, I believe it's been communicated, but we are working closely with the police department as well, addressing issues that are there. We have worked with the police department throughout demolition on Spencer West and then also on Spencer East. I've not received any follow-up on any concerns that the police department have. Obviously, it's extensive, the vandalism that's happened at the property, but there hasn't been significant involvement in the community contacting the police department yet. We're certainly encouraging the community to do so if they see anyone on the property.
Thank you. Other proponents? I've never known Preston to be shy before.
Quite the gentleman.
Our leader.
Quite the gentleman.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Celeste Butler. Address is 3504 Fowler Avenue. I'm a lifetime resident of North Omaha and a proud community and a proud people. I'm here today because I'm very disappointed at the progress and what has not happened with the Spencer projects, East Side. First off, since the last families were evacuated from that property, it has never been boarded up or secured. Shortly after that, the trail began. I walk that neighborhood at least 5 times a week, sometimes more. I've started a walking group in that community that supports especially Black women to start getting healthy in their bodies, in their minds, and then going back out and supporting the community, our families, so that we can live a healthier lifestyle. Because of the devastation along that trail, it is very and extremely difficult to do walking. It is dangerous and it is hazardous. And the Spencer Projects is a huge, Spencer Projects East is a huge part of not having that ability to do so. It is a known fact that you can walk at least 30 minutes a day. It helps improve your heart condition and keeps you from having heart attacks. No one should not be allowed to be able to have that accessibility. I'm looking at school children standing on the bus stops in that neighborhood as well as 2 blocks away, 6 o'clock in the morning. But yet this building is still, to this day, wide open and not boarded up. Back in May 8th, approximately 9 o'clock in the morning, when I walked through there, the first section of the fence that had been put up was totally missing. That went on until late the summer when the rest of the fence came down. But during that process, when the fence was up and I walked through there, whether by myself or with my walking group, you can see people moving around. You can see men coming in and out. Totally devastating. My neck would have to be on full swivel every time I go past there. Not only on the east side of the Spencer Projects, on the Bristol Street side, right across from the brand new development that everybody's so excited about, there's a total devastation and desecration of the home in which I grew up in that has now become an encampment for people and humans without homes. That property where that encampment is literally where I grew up at. On that property, my parents had, and this was after they pruned back, 15 peach trees, a grapevine, apple tree, a Victorian-style house with 4 bedrooms, a garage with the carriage house living quarters above it. All that was taken by 75 North Freeway. And guess what? It never had to be taken. We also owned a 5-bedroom house directly across the street from there, which did not have to be taken. All of that property has been sitting, even to now, undeveloped, and nothing, and my family could still own that property. So what I'm here to say today is, and I want to give a special thanks to Sparks that have worked diligently with me. I have emails starting back in 2022, July 15th, and this was when the trail was still under development, and I'm walking part of that area, and I was almost accosted by this individual in the car, and if anybody wants a copy of this email, I will make sure you get a copy of it, but I kind of wrote some notes on this, so you don't want this one. I then, at that time, sent a video to Manny Cook, who was over Sparks. He contacted an individual at the city and let them know what was going on. This conversation went over through a couple of emails. If you want me to call the person's name, I can, but if not, that's okay as well. I'm very disappointed because what happened throughout the course of this email conversation, all the way up until July 22nd, 2022, 9:46 a.m. The individual from the city was supposed to go on a walk with us so I can point out some of these things that's happening along the trail, the dead spots and the danger zone. I'm very disappointed and actually angry right now because as my mind goes back and the condition that I was left in as a woman, no one should be able to have to go through that. And I was here before, back a few months ago, about some of the same devastations about the vacant buildings in North Omaha, and that one was the property of OEDC. And we all know what happened to that one. But this one on August 25th, Let me get these glasses on. August 25th, 2022, 10 a.m., we had on the calendar a scheduled walk from the individual from the city who happened to be a no call, no show, and to this day a no response. So you tell me, if this was your mother, your daughter, your sister, your favorite auntie, your grandchild, as a woman, and us all see all of these men sitting here and a couple of ladies, how would you feel? How would you better handle this? I want protection and I want safety on that trail. There's another walking group that I walk with, and they invited me out to a trail that's between Cunningham and Sorensen. And I noticed cameras out there on that walk. They had a level of security. This trail came after the Big Bang downtown, and there's cameras all over downtown. But somewhere stuck between the middle of North Omaha, there's absolutely no security, no protection, no safety, no cameras. So is that really how you feel about me? Is that really how you feel about the women in North Omaha? Can this continue to be the way it is today? So we can sit here and say, somebody came along and stole manholes, and we can sit here and say, somebody stole all the wiring out the building. So what happens in that? I want you to look at it from a different narrative and a different perspective. If they demolish that building single-handedly, scrapping and outsourcing that material, what's left to do but to tear it down? Because the major part of what has to be hauled off has already been taken. So that's by the pound. If you're paying by the pound or paying by the load, that's extra garbage that you don't even have, you didn't want because you didn't board it up. You didn't have any kind of security around it. So I'm asking today for my safety, my security, and for my health and wellness, both mentally and physically, as well as all the women who walk with me, that we have a layer of safety built around us, and we have people in this community that is concerned and will do the right thing. It's not a game to me. I plan on living for a very long time, and I plan on being healthy for a very long time. But as we know, when we're under certain levels of stress, our cortisol goes up. Depression happens. Anxiety happens. So on North Omaha, we already know it's a food desert where we can't even get a decent meal. Everything is fast food and just garbage. Couple that with no type of exercise, and you're not just talking about me, now it rolls down to our babies. I wouldn't dare ask our babies to go out there and walk. But yet they're doing it every morning just trying to get to school safe. In a building that they don't have the common decency or the respect to even board up. And even if you boarded it up, we already know they need places to live. So they're going to snatch it right back down and go right back in. So the only alternative is to knock it down in the ground immediately. And I like to say that you have the heart to do that. I want you to understand, right here in the United States, there's approximately 76,000 Black women and girls missing, and nobody's looking for them. There's another 20 to 30,000 indigenous Black women and girls missing, and nobody's looking for them. I'm not trying to be one of those numbers.
Celeste, I'm going to have you summarize. We have some other testifiers, I think.
I appreciate it, but you guys took 2 hours this morning. Okay? I appreciate everything you're saying, but y'all took 2 hours, and I just have a few minutes here. And this is important to say, Mr. Festerson. Thank you. If we can't get the police department to monitor that area or get some type of entity, there's the Black Agenda Alliance. They have a security team, and they're well known throughout the city. I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help monitor that with pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents, please.
Let's turn this on. Sherman Wells, 4718 Kansas Avenue. I'm gonna put this up here while I'm talking. Is the thing on? Okay. That is a picture I took yesterday of Spencer East on my way home from a meeting about coming to this meeting. There you see 2 business trucks with 3 white men with a portable saw cutting out pipes and cutting down the things that people use to hang their clothes on for scraps, clotheslines. And when I pulled up, he came over to me and said he's a scrapper, and it was getting closed anyway. And he asked me, was I from the city? And I told him, no, do what you do. I just wanted to see what you were doing. That first black truck pulled right off, and the guy in the red truck, he came over to me. And as you can clearly see, this is a white man. This is not a member of our community. He told me he wasn't from the area. And so the belief that the community has been stealing the fencing and going in that property is untrue. And we have no use for those scraps, the window seals and the things that were missing. So I'm gonna say evacuating Spencer East and abandoning it without proper boarding created a hazardous situation and an eyesore for our community. Unfortunately, this is not an isolated occurrence. It's a pattern observed in many black communities across America. It serves as a method to instill a sense of mental hopelessness, especially for those who are already grappling with poverty, violence, or incarceration amongst friends, which we know in Omaha, we have one of the highest rates of incarcerating black men and children, but that's another story. Witnessing the neglect of Spencer East further enhances the despair, playing into a larger agenda to suppress black America. While I don't give that much thought credit to 75 North or OHA or this council to be a part of a grand scheme in America or North Omaha, it appears there was an assumption that North Omaha would tolerate the building sitting abandoned until March. But let's be honest, look at 24th Street, the once thriving business district, compared to other prosperous areas like Blackstone, Old Market, Dundee, and South Omaha. I mean, really, there's no comparison. The economic downturn in our district since the tragic death of my descendant, Vivian Strong, it goes largely unaddressed by the North Omaha leadership. So why would people who don't live in our district think they're doing anything wrong since the masses of the citizens tolerate this fake business district, or should I say nonprofit district? And in their minds, it seems acceptable to OHA, 75 North, and anyone else involved, any leadership, to leave this abandoned building without proper security measures, situated in the poorest zip code with a high concentration of sexual predators. The prevailing sentiment appears to be waiting for an incident to occur so they can react to it, engage in a photo op or a news story discussing federally funded programs designed to prevent such occurrences, and then return to a state of inaction. However, this time, that approach is no longer acceptable. If addressing this council and other officials become necessary to shed the light on the mistreatment, the microaggressions, and the systematic racist oppression faced by the citizens of North Omaha, I am prepared to do so. Disrespectfully, because respect is earned and is not freely given.
Thank you. Other proponents?
My name is Preston Love. I live at 6021 Villa DeSante Drive. I came here at 2 o'clock to give just a moment, someone who left their phone up here, to just briefly testify in favor of the demolition. My issue was simply that it needed to be done right away. I surely am here to say that, but after listening to the last two testimonies, I feel compelled to do a couple things. Number one, I surely agree with the analysis, and I really have great respect for the work and the data points that were mentioned, the reality of it all, not just the theory of it all, that there are people walking on the trail, there are people inside those facilities, and there's all kind of shenanigans going on. So I came to testify about timing, but I surely want you to understand that I surely affirm both testimonies. I have uniquely lived and worked throughout this country, and for longer years than anybody in the room, maybe. But I would say to you that the story of disrespect and the idea that someone mentioned about that poor and poverty communities would tolerate whatever is not unique to North Omaha. It is a phenomenon for all African American communities throughout this nation. And so what brings the ire up of African Americans is that, oh my goodness, here we are going through this again. Someone mentioned 24th Street. I have lived, as I say, longer than most in the room, but I have observed personally 40 to 50 years of no improvements, recovery, or investment in North Omaha. We are a poverty-stricken community, and when you have poverty-stricken communities, one of the elements is homelessness, and part of homelessness is despair and, quite frankly, anger. And that sometimes then generates crime. And so if you're going to do a demolition, and whether you plan for it or not, if you're going to leave a part of it undone, then you don't understand the realities of poverty. And if you're going to leave it that, it is guaranteed that you'll have all the bad residuals that have been testified. So I'm not criticizing the timing. I'm criticizing those who work with the demolition for you not understanding the environment that you're working with and the people. And I criticize respectfully that much of it could have been alleviated by having relationships, conversations with the community, because we know we could have predicted that had it, just like we now are looking back. I understand from news coverage that the demolition is going to start in days. Is that correct? That's what I just heard. Huh?
We'll get that on the record here in a second.
Yeah, okay. And so had I known that, I might not have came, but I'm glad I came because I surely want you all to hear what I'm saying and take me seriously. The way to mitigate these kinds of problems, this one and those to come, is to have a closer respect and relationship with the community, to sit down and say, here's what we got before us, and the community will tell you the truth about what probably would happen, and then solutions could have been done before the fact. I sit down and ask that the council consider establishing, I don't know how you do it technically, but there needs to be something between the city, OHA, and whatever other parties, and the community, and let's sit down Spark is one of the groups from the community, but let's sit down and talk about where do we go from here? What kinds of things could we do to make it safer? That's just one issue. What kinds of things can we do to mitigate future developments? What kinds of things can we put in place? I think I would highly recommend whatever way that the council makes things like that happen, that you consider doing it, because in spite of our wonderful testimonies, the beat goes on. And so let's talk about what we do starting tomorrow and going forward. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon again. Bui Ray Tut and 5003 California Street. Also, I would like to full-heartedly agree with Ms. Butler, Mr. Love, and I'm sorry, brother, Mr. Bass? Mr. Wells, I'm sorry, and Mr. Wells, as the CEO of Spark, but also as a user of the trail. Me and my 2-year-old son have been using that trail now, for a few weeks since, for a few months since I've been appointed CEO of Spark. And I've had the pleasure to walk along with Ms. Butler and kind of get a view of what's been going on with Spencer Homes. I gotta say, like, when I immigrated here to the United States, the first place we stayed with was with my uncle at Spencer Homes, so that kind of has a special place before we moved to Wintergreen. Seeing that in a dilapidated state is kind of heartbreaking, but at the same time, with the demolition and everything, and Mr. Love kind of alluded to this, once the demolition takes place, I think it's important to talk about what's next with that location, with Spencer East, and how the community is going to be involved in how drafting what that looks like, and what solution or what kind of plans is going to come out of that. So I'd just like to challenge every entity involved to kind of give that a strong consideration. It's one thing to have demolition done, but to really consider about what's next, I think it's an important and critical component. We rate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next proponent. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. And it started, I think all of the testifiers, but it started with Ms. Butler, made comments about when this will begin. Who can testify as to, I think I heard earlier today, not at this hearing, that they intend work to begin tomorrow?
We are prepared to issue a notice to proceed once we receive the signed contracts. So the mayor's office needs to sign those contracts. Once we receive those, we're prepared to issue a notice to proceed. We actually already have it all typed up. We've been in communication with the contractor. They know that it could be as early as tomorrow. We hope it is, but once we receive those signed contracts, we can issue notice to proceed and they're ready to start work. The first thing that they'll do is fence off the property.
Okay, so the mayor could sign it tomorrow and then that would...
I don't know if the mayor can sign it tomorrow, but once we do receive the signed contract, we're ready to go. And so is the contractor.
Well, I would encourage, I think they've been waiting a long time, so as soon as we can get this signed, the better. Now even though they're gonna start, what precautions are they gonna take for purposes of safety? Because now you've got demolition going on, so there could be even different safety issues. So what will be the process and what are they planning to do to secure the area?
So they're gonna put in a 6-foot permanent fence, first thing, so it'll be in the ground. We've had problems previously with Spencer West of people driving through barriers, driving through fencing. The fence is gonna be in the ground. In the contract, it stated that the contractor is responsible for securing the site. So any additional measures, we make recommendations in the contract. The contractor is responsible. The first thing they'll do is put up a fence. We'll be notifying adjacent property owners as to who to contact if there are any issues as well.
Yeah, is the contact going to be posted somewhere so that anybody, if Ms. Butler wants to, or Mr. Wells want to contact somebody, do they have a contact number so that it's not just going to, the mayor's hotline or something?
Yeah, we'll communicate that that's a need within the community for people using the trail as well as the property owners
Okay.
to get a sign up.
And if people are concerned about the trail, who should they be contacting?
Concerns with the trail?
Right. If there are concerns about safety and security on the trail, contact the mayor's hotline and then they'll refer it to parks or.
I would say if there's an immediate concern, it would be the police department, but then above that, it would be the mayor's office. And the same goes for receiving any code complaints. I said earlier we hadn't received any. We know the site we could have received many complaints on this. We know that complaints have gone to the media about this. To actually put it in our court where we can do something about it, call the mayor's office, make an official complaint, and that's what we can act on for this property and for others in the community.
Okay, so if there's other properties like this and you have code complaints,
we do.
You can call the mayor's hotline, and then that call to the hotline will start the complaint process, and it'll be officially logged. Is that
Or
right?
calling the planning department directly.
Or calling the planning department directly?
Yeah.
Okay, because I just think that would be important information so that everybody knows who to contact in order to make those complaints, because I'm sure there's probably other properties that may have some code violations that are dangerous, and so we want to partner with the community to make sure those are actually getting reported. So.
And it's not that we don't want to, it's that as part of a federal lawsuit, we cannot proactively go out and issue code violations. We're 100% complaint based on a federal lawsuit. And so our hands are somewhat tied unless we receive a complaint.
Okay. And this property, a lot of people, I even got an email that says Omaha owns OHA, but actually they're two separate entities. They just have Omaha in their name.
Correct.
And this was actually an OHA property, correct? I think Mr. Love made a good point because there is kind of such a tie, especially like this. We have grant funding where the city is maybe managing the grant. It seems that we work with OHA a lot. It might be beneficial, I think, to follow that suggestion of maybe having a little bit more of a coordinated effort. So if there's something that we can do, if OHA is having problems with the property, that maybe we can figure out how we can coordinate for the safety of not only potentially the people that live on the property or the people that live around the property, depending on what the issue is. So I do think that would be a great kind of community group to have, and maybe somebody here today would volunteer to be on it. So I think that would be wonderful. So great suggestions. I like it when we maybe can have these public hearings. I can't imagine anyone on this council is going to vote no on this item, so I think it'll be unanimously approved. But what can also come out of this is maybe some suggestions on moving forward, how we can make things better. So thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have Mr. Wells. I saw that you raised your hand, and then Ms. Celeste, if you would next come up to the mic to voice your concerns.
Well, because she said that there's been no public complaints. The person that Miss Butler was saying that she complained to and no showed on us when we did ask someone from the city was Keith Station. And so he not only did he never reply, he never showed up after Spark reached out to him. So it's not the point of there's no, complaints on record. It's just nobody was taking it serious. And to be honest, if you demoed the west side, the development shouldn't have started on either side until both sides was demolished. And so I think that's just a poor excuse to say why nobody did nothing about it. Surprised her nose didn't grow through that mask.
Thank you for allowing me to have these additional comments, but I just want to bring to your attention that when I had the complaints against the OEDC property at 3483 Larimore, which was the original Emmanuel Hospital building, I called and complained and sent emails multiple times over years and years. There was a block and an order somewhere that went directly to him every time I would complain, went to OEDC, and he would get a personal phone call and none of the trail would be documented. So it looked like nobody was complaining the majority of times when I called in. So whatever that is in that process that gives an individual that has these type of condemned properties a personal phone call instead of it going through the channels that it needs to go through so that this stuff can be actually documented so you can have proof positive of what's going on needs to stop. So it may not be that the people didn't call and complain. If somebody has a block order somewhere, then it doesn't go through the regular process and channel that it needs to go through. And please note that. Thank you.
Thank you. I stand with my community regarding the total disregard to property that is abandoned and then leaving an opportunity for homeless to come in, an opportunity for individuals in that community to become harmed, injured, perhaps even a casualty such as a loss of a life. Mr. Wells mentioned that, and Mr. Preston Love mentioned that this is something that has happened for 30 plus years in North Omaha. So while I'm not necessarily talking about OHA, I'm talking about a bigger issue, which is North Omaha has a problem with receiving services from the city with speed and accuracy. I just had a conversation today with Public Works regarding the streets. I got very little sympathy for my comments. I asked for a walkthrough to see what the problems were. Yes, I'm an African American woman. Therefore, I was not heard. Not only is my community not being heard, me as a representative is not being heard here at the city. Can you imagine a director of the city choosing not to go out on a walkthrough to see where potholes are in the city of Omaha when a city council person says there's a problem? You know why his answer was that? Because I'm not his boss. I hear that quite regularly. No, I'm not your boss, but I report to members of this community, and it is your responsibility, according to the charter, to respond to the request that I make. No, I'm not Mayor Stothard, not your boss, but I am the city council representative, and I have been voted to be in this space, like it or not, to report things that are happening in my community. So yes, I stand with my community today regarding these issues that have gone on far too long. Now on the good side, because I am who I am, I got ahead of this. I had a conversation with OHA. We have a plan to address some things regarding OHA property. We are looking forward to addressing things going forward in our community. Ms. Poore, if you would come up and share with this, with everyone, our discussion yesterday regarding making plans about dealing with things in the future in Omaha, more importantly, North Omaha.
Sure. Broadly, we had a conversation on Monday with Councilmember Johnson, myself, our Director of Operations, and our Resident Services Director, Salasaka, who's here today speaking. Councilmember Johnson brought forward just some general concerns that she had heard in District 2, and she was asking about the policies and procedures of the Housing Authority and how we manage and how we respond to some of those things. She provided some suggestions to us. We provided some ideas to her about some of the things that we do and how we do those things. And we agreed on several steps going forward as far as working more closely than we already do with our resident associations and our coordinating council, which is the leaders of those resident associations, talking with them about some of the ideas and the things that have been brought forward either by our staff or by Councilman Johnson or others for how to streamline information. Sometimes working with any landlord can be confusing. Working with OHA and the many, many regulations we have is certainly confusing. So how to streamline that, how to get people access to information faster, easier, and bringing some of those things forward. How do we hear from individuals that we're serving on what it is they would like to see? What concerns do they have? How can their needs be better met? And then also working more broadly with the community as a whole, if there's feedback. And then also making sure we have a position called a resident assistant, and making sure that our tenants and those resident assistants, tenants know how to contact them, those resident assistants feel really well equipped to respond to needs.
Thank you.
Broadly, there's a lot more specifics, but that's broad.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I'm going to wrap this up in a nutshell and say you've heard the voices of my constituents speaking about city services. I hope you heard them rather than discard them. These are real concerns. This is not about personal issues. This is about real issues in Omaha, Nebraska, more importantly, North Omaha, that is going on and has been going on for decades. And even when we put in nonprofit organizations to serve our community, they are not, I repeat, not coming into the grassroots area and finding out what the issues are. We are just simply putting a Band-Aid approach on the realities. No, we don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. Thank you.
Would you like to move items 84 and 85, Ms. Johnson?
I have one more constituent that would like to come up to the mic. Celeste.
This is just something that just dropped in my memory from the incident that happened last year when the police were dropping bombs in that same Spencer Project development. So before you start the demolition and everything, the house on the far end of that unit, towards the fence part where it fences off the house in the Bristol Street side, there's a young woman in that development, and she has an autistic child. I need y'all to seriously talk to her, consider her, put her and her child up in housing, do whatever you need to do to protect her as well as that child. Because when they came before, and the police department, all of them dropped those experimental bombs and was imploding in Spencer Project, they didn't consider any of that, as well as the elderly neighbors that was affected by all of that fallout as well. But please protect that child with autism. That mom suffered dearly for weeks and months just to try to get that child back in order. And ask me how I know that. Because my boots is on the ground at least 5 to 6 days a week in my own community walking. And I know my neighbors for blocks and blocks and blocks and blocks. I know my community and I know my neighbors. And that's something that you're not privy to. But do not disrupt that baby like that ever again. So now you got a demolition that's getting ready to happen. But if you're not talking to us, then you don't know how to protect them. So please, go knock on her door. If you need me to go with you, I'll go with you. But don't terrorize that child like that again.
Thank you. I would also like to say that city departments, North Omaha has appointed a person to represent them. And as you go about your day-to-day habits, I'm not trying to take over your workload, but you might want to consider including me in your decisions because it impacts the entire city of Omaha when you do not.
Would you like to move those items, Ms. Johnson?
Yes.
84 and 85?
84 and 85, motion to approve.
I'll second. And I'll just, before we vote, this will be a unanimous vote here in 1 second. I just want to thank you all for being here and for your testimony and for being advocates for your neighborhood. I think we did get some firm commitments here today about securing that site and demolition as quickly as possible, hopefully as soon as tomorrow, and ongoing communication in the future. I will just let you know that I'll be acting mayor for the next several days. It'll be my duty to sign all these documents we're approving here today. And when this one's ready, I don't care if it's midnight or anytime tomorrow morning, let me know and I'll sign it right away. All right. Thank you. Roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Aye.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks, everybody.
Item 86, a resolution to approve the appointment of Adam Van Osdale to the Public Art Commission.
Public hearing and vote on number 86 is today. Proponents, please. Yes.
Adam Van Osdale, 2734 North 45th Avenue, 68104. Here for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other proponents on 86? Any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Roll call.
Hug.
Yes.
Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 87, a resolution to approve the reappointment of James Farho to the Blackstone BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 87 is today. Proponents? Seeing none. Any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, is your light on?
Yes.
Yep.
I will be voting no on this, just so that we have this on the record. I continuously talk about unfairness that my community face, and we still have committee appointments that I'm concerned about being available in a group setting so that they can understand and have conversations from different points of view. As long as we continue to have these types of appointments, no one shows up to introduce themselves, no one shows up to allow questions to be asked, my answer will be no. No reflection on the individual. It's about the process. The process is wrong. It hurts my community. It damages my community. It doesn't help with any of the processes that are needed in order for us to grow as a city. So if I have to stand alone to say no to this until this body decides to understand the relevancy of inclusion in these committee appointments, then I will stand alone, but I will be making them, I will stand alone and talk about it every single appointment, every single one.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'll be glad to support Mr. Farho's reappointment. I've gotten to know Jim since I've been on the council. I've been in his house. He does a great job for Blackstone, for the BID, is a longtime, decades member of that neighborhood. And I support the mayor's reappointment to Jim 100%. He's done a tremendous job for Blackstone. He's been a help. I think he even ran for this seat years ago. I got to learn as I've met with him. Great knowledge, great businessman, great family there, and I'm glad to support this appointment today. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Melton.
Yes, I support this appointment too. I don't necessarily expect people to come down, but I do want to thank Mr. Van Osdell for actually coming down and appearing and giving all of us the opportunity to ask you a question if we wanted to, and no one did. So I support Mr. Farho on this appointment, and I would ask for the rest of the council members' vote. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
If there is someone in the room that is up for an appointment, they can make themselves known. But traditionally, this body has already advised appointments that they don't have to show up. They don't have to engage. So I assumed that no one was here. So, my mistake. Thank you.
Okay. No further lights. Is there a motion on this item?
Second.
Motion a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 88, a resolution to approve the appointment of Sean Coulterman to the Little Bohemia BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 88 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Hug.
Mr. President, could we lump 88 through 94 in one vote? Would that be permitted?
I think under the circumstances, we better do it one by one.
I understand. Okay, thank you.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 89, a resolution to approve the appointment of Katie Mock to the Little Bohemia BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 89 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Bagley.
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the appointment of Ms. Mock. I've also gotten to know her as a business owner both in Blackstone and Little Bohemia. Her and her husband, Noah, tireless, passionate about both of those communities in my district. And I am super excited for her to be on the Little Bohemia BID, and I think the mayor made a great choice here in Katy. Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 90, a resolution to approve the appointment of Dorothy Noonan to the South Omaha BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 90 is today. Proponents, please. Any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 91, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Eric Washkuhn to the South Omaha BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 91 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 92, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Jeremy Hulberg to the South Omaha BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 92 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 93, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Rigoberto Perez Fuentes to the South Omaha BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 93 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson.
No.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 94, a resolution to approve the reappointment of Marcos Mora to the South Omaha BID.
Public hearing and vote on number 94 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 95, a resolution to approve the purchase agreement with Kiewit Corporation for the sale of property located at 1502 California Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 95 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 96, resolution to approve the purchase agreement with Kiewit Corporation for the sale of properties located at 1515 California Street and 513 North 16th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 96 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Move the approval.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Hug. Johnson. Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-1. Item 97, an ordinance to approve a professional services agreement with Q-Free America, Inc. for continued traffic signal controller software support.
Public hearing on number 97 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 98, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to a mixed-use district development agreement for Kensington Park located northwest of 204th and Q Streets to allow auto repair services and general retail sales. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 98 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 99, an ordinance to amend Section 6-105 and 6-127 of the Omaha Municipal Code to increase the annual fee to licensed dogs and cats and to increase the non-domestic animal removal fees.
Public hearing on number 99 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Pam Weiss for the Nebraska Humane Society, 8929 Fort Street, Omaha, Nebraska. As you know, and Councilwoman Melton pointed out earlier today, the Nebraska Humane Society is contracted by the City of Omaha to provide animal control services for the city. They're needed services. We do things like stray and pound, bites, cruelty investigations, all types of things with animals. And if the city did not contract for these services, they would have to provide them through an animal control division of the city. NHS has been here in the Omaha area for a long time. I think animal control has been contracted since like 1940s in order to provide these services. So we have the facility, we have the structure, we have the expertise to provide these services. However, the costs are going up, and the animal control costs and the city contract have been a little without sync. So we're working on that. The $1.25 pet license fee increase was negotiated between NHS and the city as a part of the 2024 contract to help bridge that gap between the actual cost of animal control services that NHS provides and the amount that the shelter has traditionally kind of ponied up in order to absorb some of those differences. The last pet license increase was in 2017, so that was 5 years ago. The increase, as we worked out this morning, is less than 1% a year and will help keep up the costs of living and doing business for animal control, which continues to go up. So the Nebraska Humane Society and its Animal Control Division appreciates the city partnership and your support and hope you vote on this.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Anthony Cato, 2596 Crown Point, Omaha, Nebraska. I oppose it because of the fact that it's a partnership with the city. One of the questions that I would even ask City Attorney Matt Kuzi is the fact that when did the city issue public or private entities badges to enforce the laws of the city? I'm almost positive that's illegal to do so. And if they have the authority to cite make prosecutions through the city attorney's office, then they should be a part of the city. They do good work for the most part. They really do. But it's an incident that comes to mind is in my neighborhood. There's a couple of elderly people. One of them is formerly Dwayne Hudson, formerly deputy sheriff officer of Douglas County. His great aunt lives on my block. She had a raccoon that was dying. Somehow or another crawled up and got on her roof. She's 88. She can't get it off the roof. I was told to call the Humane Society by a city operator. The Humane Society partner said, we can't do that. We're not part of the city. That's problematic for me because you act in that capacity and are somewhat deputized to do for enforcement of other crimes involving pets. Then you should be able to go over there and get that animal off her roof. Nope, they told me call the fire department. Fire department said, we don't respond to that, call Public Works. Public Works called back and said, call the Humane Society. See how this is a domino effect? If you have a private entity, because then they told me to call Baldwin Rescue Center, which is off of 96th and L, and they are a private entity, not affiliated, not contracted by the city as far as I know. They came and got it. But one of the things that the operator told me from the Humane Society side, you can't touch it, you can't kill it, you're not supposed to capture it. Now wait a minute. Animal control, most citizens think animal control is the Humane Society because they have those officers come out their little trucks with the lights on and they have a badge that says City of Omaha on it. But they're not a part of the city. They're a private entity that gets some funding from the city that's authorized to do some legal things for the city, including criminal prosecutions. That's problematic for me. What I would suggest, and I hope you do this, literally make them a city entity. That way they can help other people if they have bats, rodents, dogs, beavers, raccoons on their property and they need to remove them. They can do that. She said it, they have the expertise. The city needs that in their arsenal because the taxpayers are under the impression we're paying for it and we're not getting the bang for our buck. We're providing funds for it. We're not getting the services that we think we're supposed to be getting, and we're giving them authorization to do that. And lastly, and most importantly, it's my sincere hope that the city recognizes that we need them as an entity to do that, but give them the full tools to do it so us taxpayers feel safe when we see them pull up and they're acting on the city's behalf. They're a part of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Other opponents to number 99?
My name is Mike Wiggins. I'm a contractor. I have a feral cat colony permit. I had absolutely no intentions of coming and addressing this board today. I just want to sit and listen. Ironically, this issue comes before. I'm baffled. I live near 90th and Fort where the Humane Society is. I see all the bright, shiny new...
If you could provide your address.
Oh, I'm sorry, 7802 North 81st Street. Sorry about that. Yeah. So I go by there every day, just about. You know, they've got this brand new cat aquarium, building. I walked through it when they were done. Many of the cages are empty. I guess I'm just saying this because I don't know where all their money's going. I was going to donate everything I had to the Humane Society at one point. I have no kids. I'm not married. I have nobody. I have one brother, and I wouldn't leave him a dime. I'm passionate about animals. Every day I go and I feed feral cats. I am the weird cat guy. 61st and Ames, where the Burger King just got torn down. This is pathetic. People don't care about the feral cats. There's not even they spend millions of dollars every year. People donate to the Humane Society, and they spend their money on what? I mean, yes, they do a good job. I don't want to belittle Miss Weiss to that point, but they've got a lot of other stuff going on. They don't even have a veterinarian there for the
They used to do the spay neuter clinic. They don't even have anyone over there. So all these cats and dogs that are out there, they're procreating, and they're more and more of a burden on the city. The cats, the raccoons, all these things are something that call after hours. Call and see what you need for a raccoon. And I'll be, in fairness to the Humane Society, sometimes they have to have a police officer to come out with them to euthanize some of the animals. If I catch them myself, it's a much better deal. But if the animal's not there, it's wounded, I take pictures and I tell them come out. It might be an hour or 2 hours. The deer, deer that get hit or on the side of the road that are still alive. I call 911, tell the officer to come out, wait while I'm there, and then they'll shoot them. I'll get a cat. I'll get a permit for that to keep it so I can go feed feral cats. I guess I would just really, I'm just voicing my opinion because I'll never get a chance to say anything to Miss Weiss because she's too busy with everyone else in their stuff. But they get a lot of people that donate money. I know a lady right now, $1.5 million she's going to give the Humane Society, and I want to talk her out of it. So as sad as that seems, communication, I want to, Miss Johnson, communication is the thing here. There's such a disconnect in this board, and not to berate you either, but I wish Dave Fanslow wouldn't have left. Condemned properties. More than you know, I buy properties that are condemned. There's a property that the man's been dead for 13 years. There's people living in that house right now. I walked through that house with Omaha police. They can't do anything because there's no crime going on. I take pictures of the meters, the water meters that are not there. Code enforcement, Chad Smith. He says, Mike, I can't do anything. I can do what we call a postal search. I can knock on the door. If I can't see anything, I can't do anything. 2937 Charles. I would challenge anyone here. There's no running water there. There's people living there. There was an open case when I called and made an issue out of it. Because nobody answered the door, the case is closed. A few days after that, there's an old man was beaten to the point where police did show up. The night before, 2 guys with guns assaulted another guy in that house. On the outside, it looks good. It looks okay. But on the inside, what's going on there, ask any of the neighbors. Oh, wait, you can't ask the one across the street because he's an old man that went to a home. Immediately after that, his house was broken into by homeless people living there. When the family finally figured out what was going on, they called the police and threw them out. The homeless people came back and burned the house down. So now, again, 30th and Charles, drive by, there's a big yellow placard on it. Nobody, I don't want to say nobody cares, but all these little things that just keep adding up to, let somebody else deal with it. I don't have time, or my hands are tied. Anyway.
Thank you. Any other opponents to number 99? I don't think I see any. Public hearing's closed. Next item, please. I'm sorry, Mr. Hugg, your light's on.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to follow up on what was discussed at pre-council today. And it was figured, no, you stay there. I'm just kind of putting this on the record that there hasn't been an increase since 2017. And the amount of the increase factors out to roughly 4%. So it's a 4% increase over 6 years. So I just wanted to get that out there. So that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir, in the front row there, were you here to address this item?
I am here for 104.
Okay, thank you. We did already do 104 though, but we'll come back to you here in a second. I don't see any further lights on this item. Madam Clerk, next item.
Item 100, an ordinance to approve an agreement with IO Solutions for Police and Fire Department entry-level and promotional testing.
Public hearing on number 100 is today. Proponents, please.
Good evening now. My name is Becky Nunley, Employment Manager for City HR, here to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents on number 100? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
One public hearing can be held for items 101 and 102 for universal services agreements with Equifax Workforce Solutions LLC. Item 101, an ordinance to approve an agreement to assist in compliance in the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986. Item 102, an ordinance to approve an agreement to assist with unemployment cost control services.
Public hearings on items 101 and 102 are today. Proponents, please.
Good evening, Bree Robbins, Labor Relations Director, here to answer any questions on 101 and 102 if you have any.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearings are closed.
Item 103, an ordinance to amend ordinance 43592 to transfer $7,635,218 in the 2024 budget from the wage adjustment account to the City Police Department.
Public hearing on 103 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 105 through 123, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on the agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Hug. Hug.
It already occurred.
104?
I'll get you in a minute. It was already done.
Oh, it's already.
Yeah.
Johnson.
Yes.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 5:50.
Thank you. Happy holidays.